So good morning to all the colleagues. My apologies, we had a little technical glitch here. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. I'll be with you in a few seconds. So good morning, colleagues. My apologies. We had a little technical glitch, but we can continue now. It's great having all of you on board. We're just admitting some more people. A lot of people are joining in here this morning. And while they're joining in, I would like to just do a little bit orientation and in terms of the event and Zoom. Those of you who might not be comfortable with the Zoom platform yet, you should see at the bottom of your screen, there's a participants panel where you can click on participants and you should be able to see the other people in the meeting. You're welcome to mouse over your own name and you can rename yourself. Sometimes, you know, your device's number is showing instead of your name, so you can rename yourself so that we can see who's on the session. Also at the bottom of your screen, you should see a chat box where we can talk to each other and where we can post questions for the panelists. During the presentations, we do not encourage questions during the presentations. We will take questions after the, during the panel discussion session. Yeah, please remember to mute yourself. Sometimes we accidentally unmute ourselves. My job as well is to mute some of the people as we go along. So when you ask a question during the panel discussion, remember to unmute yourself and then you will be allowed to ask a question. Post your questions in the chat room. During the questions and answers, we will go through that as well. The people following on YouTube, good morning, and you as well. You're welcome to post questions, text questions in YouTube, and we will also have a look at that during the panel discussions. Yeah, and then in case of emergency, should something go wrong, you're welcome to have a look at your inbox. We will email new information should something go wrong, where you can join in. And then also, during the panel discussions, you can make use of the raise hand function. We go to the chat box or the participants box. You will see there's a raise hand function where you can raise your hand. After the event, we will send out a feedback form that you can kindly give feedback on this event. It's important for us to always have the news in terms of how you found the session so that we can improve. The presentations will be uploaded to the website. Those have been made available for the public domain. So after this event, it will be uploaded to the Transnet Forum's website. And I will show you now, where that can be downloaded from, or from it can download it from. I just want to share my screen. Right, so there's our program for the day. We're going to allow our host for the day, Dr. Nadine Pisa. She unfortunately can't be available because of load shedding and so on. So Prof. Jackie Walters kindly agreed this morning to do the official welcome for us. We will give him opportunity just now to do that. But we want to give quickly recognition to our sponsors for the day. Our host then is University of Johannesburg, the Institute for Transport and Logistics Studies. We've got PAXI. PAXI is is a parcel service that allows consumers, agents, suppliers, and institutions to send, collect, and return parcels to over 2,000 Paxi collection points. For your convenience, there's a Paxi point in every PEP. Paxi is a gold sponsor of the Transport Forum, so it's great having them on board. We've got Kulula, Kome, they keen supporters of the Transport Forum. Hopefully we'll see them back in the skies soon. We've got Global Trade Solution. Global Trade Solution is a user-friendly, cloud-based international trade and supply chain solution that incorporates the core requirements to manage all activities around international supply chain in a compliant and cost-effective manner. Global Trade Solution offers seamless integration with the various entities in the international supply chain, including the statutory agencies such as the customs authorities. Already 2 years a gold sponsor of the Transport Forum. We've got Zutari, who's a gold sponsor for quite some time. I don't know if there's somebody from Zutari who would like to say a few words on Zutari. Anybody from Zutari? Right, let me share on behalf of Zutari. They say they connect differently. Our strong relationships allow us to connect the right expertise, processes, and resources to match clients' needs and bring stakeholders that have shared interests together. We blend the old and the new. We have moved beyond traditional engineering and work collaboratively to integrate technical and creative thinking. The process of co-creation allows us to unearth new opportunities with our clients and partners. So they continually deliver broad collective of in-house industry recognized engineering consultants and trusted advisors provide seamless and integrated delivery. This unique ability to offer scaled engagements allows Zutari to solve complex challenges more effectively. Grounded in digital engineering, we continuously innovate to deliver better results. Zutari creates shared value and impact for our clients and the economies, environments, and communities we operate in. You know, Zutari previously were known as Oricon, and they now rebranded as Zutari. We also got freight news. I don't know, Jody, you're online yet? Maybe you can unmute and say a few words on freight news. Anybody from freight news? Right, let me tell you about freight news. They've been, it's actually FTW owned by the now Media Group. They've been sponsors of the Transport Forum since the start of the Transport Forum, was many years, 13.5 years ago. And their next generation niche site combining the in-depth expertise of Freight and Trading Weekly and the daily immediacy of FTW Online, household names in the transport community. It's information about freight and logistics, and we will strongly encourage you to subscribe to them to stay up to date with the freight news in our industry. Very important. We've got C-Track. Don't know if there's somebody from C-Track perhaps. Well, C-Track's been a gold sponsor since the start of the Transport Forum as well, 13.5 years ago. We assist our clients to transform their businesses with innovative software as a solution and Internet of Things and mobile solutions. We are passionate about changing the way business communicate, collaborate, and operate around the world, allowing you to take action in the insights from our cutting-edge devices and cloud platforms. Our support and hardware solutions come together in clever, user-friendly, and powerful software systems, enabling your business to always be visible. So it's making your assets visible, your vehicles, and what's happening inside and around your vehicles, making it visible. It's great having them on board as a gold sponsor. We've got a Railways Africa magazine. Railways Africa magazine is an African continent specialist trade, technical business-to-business publication, an online news service covering all aspects of the rail sector. With the current investment and future potential investment being made in rail and rail infrastructure projects, Railways Africa brings both global and local consultants, manufacturers, suppliers, and OEMs to the fore. Published weekly online and in print 6 times a year, Railways Africa is the authoritative publication for the rail industry in Africa. So obviously you'll find all the links to these sponsors on the Transport Forum website. So then we have Kuba. We also know them as VIX Technology. They're now Kuba. Don't know if Shorena, one of you guys want to say a few words about Kuba? People are shy today. Let me tell you the story. They believe in ticketing. They believe ticketing should be safe, simple, and secure. That's why they deliver ticket as a service. For too long, ticketing systems have been complex, inefficient, and expensive. Transport operators have spent years and millions installing, upgrading, and maintaining ineffective systems that passengers didn't understand. Well, no longer. Kuba's lean, efficient, and scalable platform provides a modern solution to a traditional problem. Our range of plug-and-play systems are deployed in a matter of weeks and seamlessly grow with operators' changing needs. With clients across the world and offices in London, Johannesburg, Rome, and Besancon, we are a truly global company with a truly global vision to banish the burden of ticketing. So that's great having them on board as well. 3 years already a gold sponsor. Optibus is a gold sponsor or an ad hoc sponsor for a few months with us. They international organization making scheduling of public transport possible. And we've got the Bunya Group, Visile Majala and her team, also a gold sponsor for the Transport Forum. They're making the world easier in terms of integrating public transport and making public transport, all modes of transport, visible and giving them the full right of existence. So those are our valued gold sponsors of the Transport Forum, and I would like to give them a big hand for their support. I just want to quickly show you, should you need to download any of these presentations, you should use that transportsig.com website. It's a very popular website. And there's a downloads feature where you can download the presentations from. You need to log in to be able to access the presentations. Should you not have an account yet, you should select the sign up option to create your own complimentary account. And after you've done that, you can log in, and then you should be able to go to events, and from the events menu, you should be able to select downloads. And the downloads feature will then give you a simple little search engine where you can find by description, or you can, for example, type in a person's surname. And the system will give you all the presentation presented by that person over the past 13.5 years. Or you can go to category and you can select today's date, and it will bring up all the presentations presented at that specific date. So ample information for you to use, complementary, and that's what the Transport Forum is all about, content provision and networking. I just want to draw your attention to this as well, our business directory. Get your company listed in the business directory. It's only 450 rands per year. That's not a lot of money, and you can be part of this popular business directory. Olga Mashilu from Beleng Bontle Consultants, we outsourced this business directory to her. You can take a picture of the screen, you can see her number there, and contact her and get your company listed. She's administrating this for us. So that's the Transport Forum. We see it today. And we're looking forward to talk about the impact of COVID-19 crisis on e-commerce, opportunities for logistics service providers and retailers. And we proudly hosted by University of Johannesburg. And without further ado, I would like to give Professor Jacob Walters, who's been a mentor for myself as well many years, and has been instrumental actually to the establishment of this forum, to give him opportunity to do the official welcome as host. Thank you, Prof. Jackie.
Oh, good morning, Harry. Thank you very much. Good morning, delegates. I'm standing in for Naleen Pisa. We have load shedding, famous load shedding at the moment. And So she asked me just to open this session. We are proud to be associated with the Transport Forum. We've been involved for more than 13 years. And what's very important for us is also the information that we get out of this, also our students. As Harry's just mentioned, how many downloads, more than 350 to 400 downloads, and those are normally up to date with the events that we organize. We also organize 4 of these events in a year with Harry's leadership there. This is the 3rd one, and we have 1 more to come, which is the Transport Month. This topic that we have today is totally different from what we planned. We normally do our planning around October, November for the following year. So about 2 months ago, we spoke to Harry and asked him to change this to include, to focus on COVID and the impact of COVID. Because I think it's had a huge impact, not only on our lives personally, but also, from a business point of view, the economy, the world, and so on. So we've decided to focus on COVID. Obviously, it's a very big topic. We can't focus on all the elements of COVID. But the program that we have here today, I think, is really very interesting. Where we look at the consumer, look at African Continental Free Trade Agreement, the last mile. It's an area that we research quite a lot in our department because it's one of the more expensive areas of supply chain management. And South Africa being a developing country, also the region, last mile logistics is really very important. And also e-commerce. As I sit here, my students are writing an online test. They have 2 days to do it. And I think this is how things have changed. The way we deal with our students, amongst other, teaching and learning has changed fundamentally. And for the rest of the year, until the end of the year, it will be all online. I'm also sure that COVID will result in many more studies to be done around the impact of COVID, how supply chains have changed. And if you look at the topic of today in the broader sense, it's around agility, how supply chains have changed, how people have changed, how we've adapted in a way to COVID. I think from a consumer point of view, COVID has had a major impact. I think very few of us have really not done any online shopping, and people that have not used online shopping have used this in the past. And it's been very convenient. It's just unfortunate that it was banned so long in South Africa, which is really a major opportunity to further grow online shopping and make people used to it. I think one of the other impacts that we see around us every day is traffic. In my area, certainly, normally in the afternoons from about 4:15 to about 5:30, you cannot venture onto the main arterials in my suburb. Yesterday afternoon, I went out at around 5 o'clock to refuel my car after the fuel price decrease, and there were hardly any cars on the road. So I think many people are still working from home, as we see, and I think this will remain for many people that we'll continue to work from home. And this will obviously have knock-on effects on office space, people reconsidering office space and so on. So the impact is really going to be huge going forward. And I think we've seen the tip of the iceberg, not really the full impact at this point in time. And I think at the heart of all of this is really technology, the fact that we can meet and greet and have conferences. It's all to do with technology. And I think, broadband access and so on. And this will also obviously have an effect, I think, in future on international conferencing, international travel, and so on. So the topics of today is really touching upon the surface of potential impacts of COVID. I would like to thank then also the speakers. I see we have one international speaker, Mr. Brian Birchfield, to talk, as well as other speakers for their time that they've set aside to prepare. It's always taking some time from something else, whether it's family time or work time to prepare something like this and to flight your PowerPoints and then to address us. But we appreciate the fact that you are sharing your knowledge and expertise with us as speakers, and hopefully our delegates will have a good experience and also interact with the speakers in the panel session and learn from there. So without any further ado, I would like to once again thank Harry for organizing this, Harry and his team, and I wish you enjoy the conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Jackie. It's such a privilege being associated with University of Johannesburg. all these years and all your support. We really appreciate that. And we're looking forward to being hosted by University of Johannesburg today. So ladies and gents, looking at our agenda then, we're going to talk about the impact of COVID-19 crisis on e-commerce, opportunities for LSPs and retailers. And our first presenter then is Mr. Brian Birchfield. He's a Senior Vice President of Sales, WNS Global Services in the UK. And he's going to talk about the changing face of the customer in retail because of COVID-19. Brian, thank you very much for your time, and we're looking forward to listening to you.
Thank you very much, Harry. Thank you very much, Jackie, for the invitation. I'm speaking to you just outside of London. So let me just share my screen here. Put this in full screen mode. So let me just give you a bit of background on myself. So I run our data and analytics here in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. I've got about 30 years in retail, using data and analytics in retail, especially around consumer and studying consumer behavior. So I wanted to just kind of share with you a little bit about what's happening here in the UK, a little bit in Europe, a little bit in the US, and what retailers are doing because of the COVID-19. So let me just, and I've only got about 7 or 8 slides, so let me just elaborate a little bit. I want to tell a couple of stories as well. But consumer behavior, because of the virus, has changed dramatically. I mean, initially when we saw this happen in March, we saw a massive shift in what I call the Maslow pyramid, in the basic needs. And people were, as you probably saw in South Africa as well, going to grocery stores and just buying the bare essentials: meat, toilet paper, paper towels, all of the bare pasta, all the bare essentials, and retailers really struggled to keep the shelves full. That significantly has changed over time, but there was a massive shift that just look at that basic need and completely outweighed all of the nice to haves, such as sports equipment and apparel is still suffering now here in the UK, right? The behavior is changing very fast. We're starting to see the shift now. There was an article in the paper this morning about a massive upsurge in housing demand. Prices are up 2%, and that's because there was a massive fall early days and everything was shut down. So, but people are starting to go on holiday now. The lockdown is starting to lift, but you're still seeing this very dynamic change in consumer behavior. And what we recommend to our clients is to keep their eyes on that and to constantly update their consumer segments because of the shift in behavior. Really good examples of that is when we saw a particular person shopping very erratically because it looked like they were buying for more than just themselves. They were buying for multiple people, which they were. And then so as you look at all of that, that data, and you start to understand what they're buying, how do you then pull that apart and say, okay, well, what are they buying? Who are they buying for? Are they buying for the neighbor? Are they buying for their parents? And so on and so forth. So it's very important, that we tell our clients to keep their eyes on that data and to constantly update their segments. Some of the observations that we've seen here in the UK, online sales in the UK have gone from 11% to about 19%. So we're expecting about nearly 79 billion pounds of online sales. And the adoption of digital has just gone from a decade into days, right? I mean, you can see Amazon's share, Amazon's share of the UK e-commerce market rose to 35% from 30% during the lockdown. It's very easy, as I was speaking to lots of people, lots of different retailers, lots of different consumers, very easy just to go on your phone, go on Amazon, click, click, click. I mean, for myself, I moved house during the lockdown, and everything that I needed, I literally just went to Amazon and just click, 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 and had it all delivered to the new house during the the time of my move. But the other thing that we saw was consumers were turning to A brands for trust. They were looking at the Procters and Gambles. They were looking at the Unilevers. They were looking at all of the big brands because they knew and they trusted them, right? But as grocery shelves were emptied, especially early on for those staple items, a lot of those consumers had to change their behavior. And a lot of that loyalty shifted into new products, into new categories, and so on and so forth. So there was a massive shift there of that consumer behavior. So, and, you know, where were consumers shopping? You know, we saw massive increases in grocery sales and online grocery sales. We saw massive surge in e-pharmacy sales. All the on-the-go consumption, like your coffees at Costa Coffee or Starbucks or everything, had a massive decline because most of them were closed, and those that were open, people didn't want to go. There was a massive upsurge in the sale of beer, wine, and spirits through the grocers because all of the pubs were closed, all the restaurants were closed. So a lot of people were obviously drinking at home. And footfall, if you look at even July, footfall in retail shops were down about 42%. And they anticipate that to still be down about 40% in August here as well as we start to get the numbers. So what we saw and what we're seeing here with retailers and what we're recommending is look at the 3 R's during and after this crisis is, you know, how do you use customer data to help you to restart your business? How do you engage with your customers to help to revive your business? And then what's the data telling you? What are the customers telling you that will help you to reinvent the business? So I wanted to walk through a couple of examples of this and share this stuff with you. So I look at the restart, and one of the very first things that I saw here with one of the retailers here is obviously a lot of the restaurants were closed. And before the restaurants started to figure out that they could sell takeaways, there was only one place to really get your groceries. And so one particular retailer we saw, they had a massive uplift in sales within their fresh food category, as well as certain ingredients from other categories. And using the customer data that they have, the retailer was quick to determine that since the local restaurants were closed, people were making their own favorite takeaways, right? And that customer data helped them to determine, you know, that one of the things that they should set up was their own little takeaway shop, right? And package things up like you would go and get a takeaway. Now that was a massive change and shift in behavior for them. And, you know, the retailer, you know, they benefited greatly from that. They discovered this new category that they have. Then you started to see the restaurants figure that they could start to sell takeaways, and the government let them do that. But because of the change, because the retailer caught that early on, they tended to keep a lot of that business themselves. Now, will that be sustained over time? Maybe, maybe not. We don't know yet. Time will tell. But what that showed was that they were providing their customers a service that they missed out on. And that they were missing, and they filled that gap very quickly, and it provided that good customer experience. So I think for that particular retailer, that's a really good example of, you know, how to restart the business in a very innovative way. So the second example I'm going to talk about is revival, right? Now Macy's was hit very, very hard. Macy's in the US is a big department store. And they were hit extremely hard by COVID because obviously all the department stores were shut, but online was available. But the problem with the online is they couldn't keep up with the demand in terms of the shipping. And so what they ended up doing is they were one of the first department stores in the world to introduce curbside pickup for those customers that didn't want to go to the stores when the stores started to open up. But even prior to the stores open up, they offered this curbside service and allowed their customers to get the particular products that they wanted to order quicker. And they can control their own destiny in terms of when they wanted to go pick that stuff up. But they were also one of the first department stores to put in measures such as plexiglass barriers at cash registers, the hand sanitizers, you know, the spraying of the perfume bottles, and so on and so forth. So, and they implemented these new rules for clothes that are going to get returned as well. But this is one way. This is a really good example of how Macy's was gone from 0 sales to start to revive themselves and start to figure out, how do I best serve my customers in a way that makes the customer feel comfortable, especially those that didn't want to go in the stores, made a convenience for them in terms of when they can get their product because they can come pick it up anytime they like, and still, you know, serve their customers that way. So the last example I want to share with you is what we call reinvent, right? What we're seeing now is a massive shift, like I said, into digital.
Brian, sorry to interrupt. Brian, sorry to interrupt. Could you kindly just speak a little bit closer to your microphone?
Oh, right. Is this better?
That's better. Thank you very much.
Oh, I apologize. So the last thing I want to share with you is what we call reinvent. And what we're seeing here is a lot of retailers, with this massive shift in digital and a massive shift in data, we're seeing retailers starting to use machine learning and AI to help consumers make purchasing decisions, right? Amazon does this really, really well. Alibaba does this really well as well. And they're using AI not only to make purchasing decisions on staple items, but also to start to make purchases on impulse items. And you're getting that type of adoption from, especially from the millennials, who are used to, you know, using their phone, using digital, and using data to help drive some of that decision-making process for them. I think a really good example from my perspective is I'm a massive golfer, and I use Amazon quite often. And Amazon seems to know when I'm, you know, running out of golf balls because I either lose them in the lake or chip them up so badly they're no longer of good use. But the frequency seems to be every 5 or 6 weeks. I get this little message from Amazon saying, "Hey, did you want to order another box of Callaway golf balls?" And it uses not only my frequency of purchase, but it'll look at all the frequency of purchases for other people that look like me as well to make those decisions. But convenience, customer experience, time savings, all of this stuff is all capable and possible through AI and digital. And you know, that whole customer experience is so important for retailers now to gain loyalty, to maintain loyalty for these particular retailers. So in summary, I think knowing your customer is more important than ever before. And analytics can be used on the customer data to drive promotional offers and hyper-personalization recommendations, which are much more relevant for each individual customer. So we recommend, you know, investing in enhancing existing analytics capabilities in AI to maintain that customer loyalty. We also see the more that you know your customer, the more that you understand your customer, you're starting to understand that demand. And I know that we're going to be talking about supply chain and that last mile, you know, further into this presentation. But all the demand starts with the consumer. If you really know your customer, really understand the demand from a customer perspective, not only will you get better forecasts, but you'll have better customer experience. So that's my 10 minutes or so. So I think I'll answer any questions during the forum. So turn it back over.
Brian, thank you so much. Could you briefly just tell us a little more about WNS?
Yeah, sure. So WNS is a large business process management company. We've got a very large data and analytics practice. We've got about 3,000 people that range from data scientists, mathematicians, data analysts, and data engineers. We support some of the largest loyalty programs in the world, 2 of them here in the UK. We support a massive retailer in South Africa as well. in terms of analyzing customer data and helping them to drive better results using customer data. So yeah, that's typically what we do.
Great stuff. Thank you so much, Brian. So will you be available for the panel discussion?
I will be available for the panel discussion. I'll have to ditch out after that.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So clearly, very important to understand the customer and to understand demand. And you can't understand demand without understanding your customer, listening to you. And Brian shared that again with us. And it's so interesting how the world changes, you know, in terms of the customer experience, how the customer is experiencing doing business with you, and the interface between yourself and the customer. And clearly WNS are people that's playing a big role and enhancing this experience. So Brian, thank you very much for your time and for your presentation. Right, so our next presenter, and I would like to give recognition to SAPIX, Tonya Lamb from SAPIX. SAPIX and the Transport Forum are collaborating closer nowadays, and we're proud to be able to say that. And she also introduced us to one of their members, you know, DHL Express. And so thank you for that. Jason Blackman is a Senior Director, Customs and Regulatory Affairs, DHL Express Sub-Saharan Africa. And he's going to talk to us about leveraging the African Continental Free Trade Agreement for Africa's development lessons from COVID-19 experience. Jason, thank you so much. And we look forward to listening to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just trying to get my video up. If you can just give me half a minute. There we go. Right. Good morning, everybody. And thank you for the opportunity to present. I'm based in Johannesburg. And as Harry mentioned, I am one of the directors at DHL that covers the Sub-Saharan African region, all 51 countries. So it's a very broad and diverse region with a number of regulatory challenges that we hope that the African Continental Free Trade Agreement will help to address and bring stability to the region, especially after the pandemic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a presentation with you. Just give me half a minute. I just want to quickly call it up. Just give me 1 minute. I'm so apologies for the slide delay. There we go. Right. Can everybody see my screen?
Jason, you should select on share screen. At the bottom of your screen, there's a green share screen option.
Yeah, there it is. Okay, I'm going to share now. There it is. Okay, please tell me when you can see my screen.
All right, so now you can just go to presentation mode. So you can view top left view full screen.
Sorry, I'm just trying to find where it is. Sorry, so my screen should be shared. You should be
top left of your screen. Go to view and select then full screen.
Yeah, I'm on full screen. It's full screen. Hold on, give me 1 second. Let me swap to a PowerPoint. Sorry, my apologies for this. Let me quickly just change it to PowerPoint. All right. And you say you can't see it yet?
We see your presentation. You can just go to so now you can go to display settings and duplicate slideshow.
Okay, so I'm just sorry, I'm just trying to. Normally when I've done these Zoom meetings before, it just automatically shares. Hold on for me.
At the top of your screen, display settings.
Yeah, I've got, hold on for me, give me 1 minute, sorry. Hold on for me. Sorry about this.
And now you can just go presentation mode.
Okay, sorry. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I'm in, sorry. Okay, so
you can see the slides. Just click on
Zoom.
So we can see your slides.
Yeah, that's what I'm, yeah.
That's it.
Is that okay? Sorry about that. Normally I do not have such technical challenges when I'm presenting on Zoom. So so what we're going to be sharing with you today is a very important topic that we've had a lot of interest in across Africa and from a number of NGOs and governmental organizations or governmental bodies asking about how the AFCFTA is going to be leveraged for African development and basically helping to give the region resilience against the effects of the pandemic and going forward into how it can help to mitigate future such effects. So as most of you will be aware, the actual rollout and implementation of the AFCFTA. Yes?
Jason, sorry to bug you again. Just go to the top of your screen at display settings and say duplicate slideshow.
Okay, I'm looking for that. I can't see it. It says show taskbar, display settings.
There you go. There you go. Click there.
Okay, there we go. Okay.
Slideshow.
Does that work? Have you got it?
Waiting. Yes, that's it. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. So what we've seen across Africa is a push to try and get the AFCFTA, it's quite a long-winded word, implemented. It was suspended from implementation on the 1st of July this year. That was a planned implementation period to commence with. It's been pushed back to earliest will be January next year. And there are questions as to whether that is a realistic timeline for the implementation of the free trade agreement and free trade area. It'll be the biggest free trade area in the world and will add trillions to the GDP of the region. It'll help streamline efficiencies within the supply chain in Africa. It'll stimulate economic growth, and it'll push the intra-regional trade development that is so desperately needed, especially in the face of the economic catastrophe that the region is encountering through the impact of the pandemic. So what have we learned? So just on the outset, this presentation, just as a normal disclaimer, is informational purposes only. So it's not to be taken as professional or legal advice. And that, as always, as with any presenter, DHL does not assume the responsibility for the accuracy of the information, nor do we provide specific legal or regulatory advice to the public. So this presentation is for information purposes only. And I will share a copy with you after this. If you would like a copy, Harry will able to send a copy out to you in the PDF format. So just as a starting point, I thought I would just share with you some of the trends within Africa regarding e-commerce. It's accelerated rapidly. In one country alone, in Ghana, we've seen an increase of about 75% in our e-commerce traffic. And so you can see that there's around the world, we're seeing growing interest in handmade, authentic products from Africa. We've got a growing diaspora around the world that continues to demand specific goods. What's important to note is that the e-commerce awareness and participation has accelerated across the sub-Saharan African region, and even more so, that acceleration has been fueled by the COVID crisis in terms of curfews, lockdowns, people being stuck at home. It was what we did in South Africa. We lobbied government by demonstrating the safety protocols and social distancing and contactless deliveries to enable them to open the e-commerce sector for all products and commodities, and not to restrict us to, for example, only essentials. And so during the COVID pandemic, it's proved to be the lifeblood of our growth in Africa in terms of the growth, and it's rapidly accelerating. Even now, it's continuing, and the SMEs are also contributing significantly to that growth within Africa. Information, as we all know, and I don't think it's a revelationary statement, but the COVID-19 pandemic has changed our lives in ways that we've never imagined. I was saying to my wife the other day, it was just so interesting. In January, I was sitting on a beach in Cape Town with a glass of wine, never even thinking remotely of what lay ahead 3 months later. I mean, everything changed within almost a heartbeat. We've been restricted in travel, meeting with families and friends. But what became very important throughout the whole pandemic was the continuing importance of trade and trade facilitation, that all of the efforts across the region in promoting trade facilitation should not have just been suspended or put aside whilst we dealt with the pandemic. There needed to be a fine balance struck between the two. So it's highlighted the fundamental importance of global trade, but it's highlighted the challenges of protecting the health of our population whilst avoiding disruptions to trade, and to continue to maintain the supply chain, which from my own personal experience, and forgive me if I'm sounding biased, but as DHL, we've done exceptionally well across Africa during the pandemic in the response that we put in place. We geared up our infrastructure. We had 14 aircraft in Africa that crisscrossed the region on a daily basis, providing services to the countries to which commercial cargo flights were no longer operating. And so during the pandemic, we were able to still get to 95% of the region with our own DHL aircraft. We had charter flights operating between Johannesburg, Nairobi, and Bahrain. From Bahrain, we had the DHL network that we injected our materials into Europe. But it just illustrated the growing dependency and need for global trade and interregional trade, because our volumes were maintained during COVID. It just showed you that trade will continue regardless. It's how you strike that balance. We also noted that there was a strong need to create a transparent and consistent regulatory framework supported by streamlined customs processes that balance the need, as noted, for compliance with trade facilitation, attracting foreign direct investment, and driving economic growth on the African continent. The AFC FTA provides the perfect framework for the African continent to succeed, and the COVID-19 has demonstrated to the global business community the need to diversify manufacturing and supply chain logistics to avoid any regional disruption from becoming a global disruption. Some of the key observations that we've learned and takeaways that we've observed during the past 5-6 months, I think it's been 6 months, is that a rapid and ambitious implementation of the AFCFTA, again, it's one of those long-worded abbreviations, will go a long way in hastening the recovery from COVID-19 impacts, whilst inoculating Africa against future adverse effects of shocks such as this. And Mr. Stephen Karingi made that quote and was saying that we need to maintain momentum on the agreement as a mechanism for building long-term continental resilience and volatility management, because that's essentially what we've seen over the past number of months, is the up and downs of trade and economic activities. And so this is a very important quote in demonstrating what this trade agreement will help to do for the Africa region. We also saw that during the COVID-19 initial phases, the regulations governing the COVID-19 measures were rapidly rolled out with very little private sector consultation. Given the rapid advent of the pandemic, we understand that that is a situation that nobody would have foreseen. But there is definitely a need for more collaboration between the private and the public sector in regulatory development and how we not trade off, but balance the need for regulatory oversight with the need for free trade. And we've seen a number of countries locally and globally, not just in Africa, but globally, introducing during COVID trade restrictions, particularly on personal protective equipment, medicines, and health equipment. We also found that with the rapid implementation of regulations, countries tended to take a pragmatic approach. And what they did is they tended to err on the side of caution. And because it was a situation nobody had encountered before, it was in some cases a trial and error approach to see what worked and what didn't work. And as they progressed with their trial and error approach, and so they began to settle into the new norm, we noted the regulatory frameworks were changing, were accommodating, and were more practical and realistic and reasonable. And so our approach in the future would be to say, engage with the private public sector. We will work with you. We will give you support on what's have worked and what we have learned in other parts of the world. And we've leveraged a lot of what they did in Europe, because they had the biggest impact in the initial phases of the pandemic. We took lessons away from China, and we've taken lessons away from the United States. The Continental Free Trade Agreement has the unique ability to bring together all 55 member states of the African Union. I think, as far as if I'm correct, there's only one country that has yet to sign the agreement, which is Eritrea, but all of the African countries have signed up for the agreement and are in the process of finalizing their ratifications and depositing their instruments of ratification. So it's an important document, and it still presents the risk that COVID-19 will perhaps necessitate African countries to continue to adopt protectionist policies in the midst of pandemics and protecting their own economic trade. In terms of other observations that we noted during this period, and this is not only based on DHL experience, it's based on what we've been shared in our trade forums and industry body meetings, and what we've been doing research on in terms of the region and how we respond. We did see some reprieve with customs in terms of simplification. We saw in some cases like South Africa, rebate opportunities for COVID-related suppliers where there was rebates on duties and VAT. So we did see some reprieves coming through, streamlined customs processes. South African customs were very good in the way that they approached it. They were clearing shipments that were compliant. So they allowed imports and exports. They didn't restrict their services in the sense of saying, you can't do this, you can't do that. As long as the shipments met the regulatory requirements, they provided a full service throughout COVID. And we worked very well with them in South Africa. I sit on the trade body that interacts with customers, and we had regular interaction. Once COVID had bedded down and we started settling into the new norm, there was a little bit more regulatory engagement and discussions. Many countries reacted to the pandemic by implementing specific trade measures, such as operating hours at the customs border posts. So we had some delays and blockages at road border posts, especially when we found there was a positive case. The entire border post would shut down 1, 2, or 3 days whilst they disinfected and sanitized the facilities. And that led to some blockages in the early periods of COVID. In some countries, there was differentiations between essential and non-essential goods. And this was a bit of a challenge because we then had to decide what met the criteria for essential, what was non-essential. And in very many cases, trucks and airlines were not going to operate their flights and their trucks with half loads because they could only carry essential goods. So it was good to see as we went into COVID-19 2 or 3 months in, the differentiation between essential and non-essential goods was removed in many cases, and any type of shipment or any type of commodities were allowed to move, provided they were compliant with the regulatory frameworks. We still saw, interestingly enough, during COVID, the continuation of physical inspections. We know that social distancing and contactless deliveries were the name of the game, but for inspections, customs inspections, you saw in a lot of countries, these inspections continued and that there were no changes. And that's one of the opportunities we have now to engage with customs as to how we try and capitalize on social distancing and how we promote the necessity of risk profiling on shipments rather than a one-size-fits-all approach. In some countries, we've seen almost daily changes in the regulations, and we've also seen, unfortunately, what they would call discretionary enforcement on the ground, where a customs officer or a police officer in many countries would interpret the regulations in a different manner. So in one of the countries, the regulations rolled out at 10 o'clock one night saying, effective immediately, no private transport will be allowed, but you will be allowed to go to work. But then they also restricted the public transport. And so some of our staff had a challenge getting from work because the customs officers or the police officers at a roadblock didn't understand the exceptions contained within the regulatory provisions for transportation services. Very often there was little or advance notice of changed regulations. So often we would find out through a press conference that the regulations have changed, giving little opportunity to comment or give concerns about how the regulations will impact trade flows across Africa. We also found that guidance notes were often lacking in defining the regulations and providing definitive regulatory guidance. One of the exceptions I did find was in South Africa, and again, maybe I'm biased because I'm based in Johannesburg, but SARS here did a really good job in publishing memorandums about changes in the legislation and the regulatory framework regarding customs processes. And they were very good guidance notes, but in other countries, we found these type of guidance notes significantly lacking in directions to the enforcement agencies on the ground. At a global level, we found a lack of coordinations amongst countries created some supply chain challenges. And then a very important one that we found particularly interesting was the lack of clarity on the defining standards or the sudden implementation of export restrictions. So what would happen is they'd say, right, masks are now restricted. These are there is a need for an inspection. But when you say, so what are they being inspected against? What are the quality standards that those masks are to comply with? Those were often lacking. We couldn't get hold of the set of guidelines that we could give to customers to say, your mask will be subject to inspection. This is the minimum quality standard. And we saw massive challenges coming out of China. One of the big complaints we had from customers was the regulatory challenges and changes that the Chinese government introduced in an attempt to optimize the quality of their medical goods that were leaving China. And so they introduced a massive amount of regulatory changes that resulted in some cases, 5 to 10 to 14-day export clearance processes as an example of some of the immediate implementation of export restrictions. So what do we need to do in terms of these key observations and takeaways? So we need to integrate the lessons learned. I think there's been an incredible learning opportunity. This is a situation that has been unrivaled in modern history. Nobody had planned for it. Yes, we all have business continuity plans and contingencies, but everybody, I think, nobody anticipated the impact and the expansive nature of how the pandemic has affected everything that we've ever done in the past 100, 200 years. So we need to promote long-term sustainable modernized customs processes, and that's where the Continental Free Trade Agreement comes in and provides support and leverage for that type of a process. We want to promote, for example, and these are some of the takeaways that we've identified, is priority lanes for freight transport at border posts. So have a lane for freight and express freight, have a lane for immigration citizens for immigration purposes, so you can differentiate and have a different focus approach to the way that that trade flows through the border posts, because congestion at the border posts has been a real problem in the past 5 to 6 months. Expediting critical goods, so we're engaging with customers to say, you know what, these are COVID critical supplies. We need to develop a system that says we can prioritize the clearance of those goods. We've been promoting and we've been seeing tax relief on a lot of goods in many countries where duty-free entry has been allowed for COVID-related supplies. And then most importantly, and my particular passion, is risk management and pre-arrival processing. In other words, how do we streamline the shipment clearances so that before they arrive in a country, the customs formalities have been processed, the bill of entry has been submitted, and where possible, based on risk management, it's been released. And if the shipment arrives under a high risk alert, it gets isolated for inspection. So risk management is going to become very, very important in streamlining the trade flows in and out of Africa and reducing the cost of doing business. So other elements that we've got in terms of observations and takeaways and how the African Continental Free Trade Agreement can assist, it can help to encourage streamlined trade processes through minimizing physical inspections, prioritization of AEO cargo, authorized economic operator programs. We're seeing a lot more countries now getting on board with this AEO concept and approach, either through a preferred trader program or through trusted trader programs, and in some countries as an AEO program, such as the cases in Uganda, Kenya, Rwanda. And we're seeing a lot more countries are now moving towards prioritization of AEO cargo. And also what we're looking at and hoping the African Continental Free Trade Agreement will promote is what they call the mutual recognitions of countries' AEO programs, so that if you're an AEO trader in Uganda, your recognition, your status is recognized in the countries with which you're doing business, so that there's a mutual recognition of that status and enabling you to have the same privileges and benefits you would have in your own country. We've also recommended and saying that penalties and collections should be extended for 90 days. In other words, no demands for payments up front on penalties, and to allow customers and importers and traders at least 90 days leverage. A big one for the region and very, very important, this is a hot topic at the moment, is paperless filings and what we call digitalization. Digitalization is becoming the new buzzword for the Africa region because there's significant opportunity, and this will be a primary focus of the Continental Free Trade Agreement Secretariat in digitalizing economies around Africa, leveraging of paperless trade, use of digital media for document transportation, for clearance paperwork, etc. So this will be very, very important. It's a topic that we had a couple of weeks ago presented at a seminar on paperless trade and digitalization. So paperless filings are very important. It'll reduce the need for social contact. It'll reduce the paper trail. And it will basically enable a lot more streamlined clearance process, as well as helping to support compliance and mitigate against the potential for corruption. Also, integrated system solutions or single window clearances are going to be important. And again, these are all going to be what the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is going to help drive and support. And then we've also noted, and one of the lessons taken away is extend the deadlines for other paper-based processes that need people to go to an office or hand in documents. And that's a big focus area for us, as well as how we change the mindset of customs and regulatory authorities to move away from the traditional paper-based processes to electronic media, the use of tablets during inspections. So we know in Kenya, for example, they're busy rolling out paperless paperless customs clearance processing and looking how they can reduce the paper trade or the paper flows, such as giving their officers tablets. So when they go to a warehouse to do an inspection, they can go onto their tablet, they can look at the documents for the shipment instead of having to physically take a paperwork file. Single duty rate for low value shipments is a big promotional area for us as an industry, and increasing the de minimis thresholds. You know, the globally accepted standard benchmark is around $200 US. In a lot of countries, it's down as low as $3, $15, $50. We've seen some great successes with some countries. So in the Ivory Coast, they've increased it the de minimis to 300 euros. In Ghana, they've increased it to $200. So we are seeing some success in some countries where the need to increase the de minimis to offset the cost of doing trade is evident. And that will continue. That'll be part of my job in DHL, is lobbying governments to help to work with them to streamline trade and reduce the cost of doing business and reduce non-tariff barriers, such as simplification of paperwork in terms of tariffs, looking at a single duty rate. So in South Africa, for example, on your Section 38 low value clearances, there's a flat 20% duty rate on a shipment, rather than saying, what's the duty rate, what's the VAT rate, and doing a formal entry. Instead, they allow the opportunity to clear on a consolidated manifest. There should be suspension of cargo restrictions. So we should be lifting cargo restrictions within the confines of certain safety protocols. We need to ensure that future and current policy and regulatory decisions, as I alluded to earlier, should not be made in isolation or in a silo approach. They should be approaching the private sector and sharing ideas. We've seen some great working bodies and seen some great outputs and changes in the regulatory frameworks where this has been the approach taken. There needs to be a broad, holistic approach that incorporates the views of all stakeholders. And this is where the African Continental Free Trade Agreement can help to harmonize and coordinate those holistic approaches, incorporating everybody's views and coming out with policy directives that encapsulate everybody's way of thinking in a workable, practical, and reasonable manner. And then, of course, I've talked already about fast tracking and achieving the paperless customs agenda in Africa. Very important. It's in place already in a number of countries. It's how do we build the capacity and support for the countries that aren't yet on board, and what is going to be needed to push those countries further into the digitalization era. So that, in essence, is the lessons that we've learned during the COVID pandemic. Certainly, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement will alleviate a number of those concerns that I've raised through a streamlined, harmonized, and coordinated policy approach. The struggle is going to be to get the buy-in of all countries, because countries obviously will say, how does this affect us? What's the impact going to be? And that's going to be the real challenge as to why maybe the January deadline is perhaps a bit too ambitious, but there are certainly some low-hanging fruits and some quick wins that can be implemented. And so we're looking forward to working with the African Union and the Trade Secretariat as an industry body, as DHL, and together with our other companies that are in the same sectors in driving these changes across Africa. It's going to be great for the future of the region in terms of mitigating the economic impacts of COVID. And I'm looking forward to working with the governments and with the private sector on developing these trade initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jason. This is exciting news. You know, we all heard about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement for some time, but as you rightly stated, you know, the challenge is how to implement this and how to get buy-in from all the countries. You know, it's been drafted and it's on the shelf, but how are we going to implement this? And I think the suggestions you made here are great. You know, the people who are supposed to implement that, you know, is definitely going to take a lot of guidance from what you've just said here. We know also that the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition are busy with a big project in terms of, you know, getting the different countries to align and to you know, get our borders more efficient. I know a lot of people in this session at the moment are involved in this process with DTIC as well. So surely we're going to share the news, what you've told us today, and they would like to, you know, to collaborate with you as well. So Jason, you're going to be available for the panel discussion?
Yes, I will be.
Thank you very much. We're looking forward to your participation then in the panel discussion. Thank you so much for your great presentation. I really appreciate it. So, ladies and gents, let me just share my screen again that we get our program on. Our next presenter then, and thanks again to Tonya from SAPIX introducing us to Mungo Park. Mungo is the Senior Key Account Director, Sub-Saharan Africa, Consumer Retail and Fashion. He is from DSV South Africa. And Mungo is going to talk to us about the impact of COVID-19 on transport and last mile challenges. Thank you so much, Mungo. We're looking forward to listening to you.
Great. Thank you, Harry. And thank you for inviting me to speak this morning. I just want to confirm you can see my screen, can you?
Perfect. Thank you.
Good. Right. Well, like all global companies, sometimes we end up with very long titles which don't mean a hell of a lot. So basically, I look after retail and consumer customers for DSV in Africa. So that is the role that I fulfill. And I'm going to try and give you a snapshot of what's happening in the last mile space. It isn't time to go into a huge amount of detail, but just to try and give you an overview and a feel for how the COVID virus has affected the last mile delivery services which we offer. So just the points that I'm going to cover, kind of look at South African e-commerce prior to COVID, and then look at the impact of COVID on retail, and then consequently the impact on e-commerce. Have a quick look at some of the last mile opportunities, and then share some of the last mile experiences which we have had within DSV. And I'm sure some of you will identify with them. Some of you may have had other challenges or experiences. But I think during the panel discussion, we may have the opportunity to share some of those. So if we have a look at South African e-commerce prior to COVID, e-commerce has outpaced bricks and mortar retail for the last number of years and has been significantly ahead of that, sort of by growing at between 10 and 15% year on year in real terms, whereas bricks and mortar has been growing at between 2 and 3% year on year, if you take out the inflationary figures. So growing significantly faster than bricks and mortar retail. And I think that's going to continue, and it was projected that would continue because of the pervasiveness of cellular technology and more people having access to online shopping portals. By having these more intelligent handheld devices which enable them to access online stores. So that was projected to continue. And also retailers were starting to show a more intentional move into these channels. I think initially retailers felt that an online store was something they needed to have kind of on the periphery. But if you actually look at some of the well-established retailers, you will see that they didn't actually do a huge amount of business through those online stores. So a retailer with 800 odd stores was possibly doing the same amount of trade as they would in a medium-sized store via the online channel. So as you can see, a really small proportion of their business was being done through online. And then if you looked at a projection of where online was going over the next 3 years, it certainly was accelerating in South Africa. And it was at the beginning of 2020, the outlook was that by 2024, the online retail would probably double in South Africa over a 3-year period. So that was kind of the outlook pre-COVID. Then, of course, this little chap arrived, which caused huge supply chain disruption and huge damage to our economy, and is definitely not a friend of ours, but unfortunately it was there, and it had a huge impact on retail. The retailers have been hit really hard by this virus. That inability to trade for a 5-week period was a huge hit, and really was something completely unexpected. To suddenly be shut down and be unable to trade and yet still have to pay for merchandise which was being imported, still have to pay storage costs because they were unable to move product which is arriving into warehouses to kind of keep it there while this five-week lockdown happened, because as we've heard, you could only move essential goods and only provide essential services at that period. So significant additional costs in addition to the challenge of being unable to trade. So a huge hit for a number of retailers, and we've seen all this in the communicated in the press. Secondly, they are looking at a significantly long recovery period. There is some recovery and some LSMs, if you're familiar with that term, lifestyle matrix, on a scale of 1 to 10, where the lower LSMs are the lower income segment of the South African population. The lower LSMs are recovering more quickly than the higher LSMs. So they're still projecting a long recovery period. So some sort of 12 to 18 months to get back to where they were trading prior to the COVID hit and the lockdown. And consequently, we're seeing some store closures because some retailers are actually not going to recover from this, and some have already closed. And I know that some restaurants and that we're seeing have closed as well. And another thing which is happening is that some retailers that I've been speaking to are not opening all of their stores. They're opening stores in high trading areas, so they may open 75% of their stores, but actually are not opening some of their stores and are looking for other areas where they can actually grow their business. The kind of higher end retailers are seeing sales down by up to 50%. They're kind of clawing back to trading at 55, 60% now. And as a result of that, they're trying to generate cash because they've sunk all this cash into the inventory which they have brought on board. And they don't have the cash because they haven't been trading to actually pay for the merchandise. So they're feeling considerably cash strapped and challenged in that area. And we're seeing a number of sales. Just about every retailer you walk into is having a sale, 30% off in some cases. Some of them are even advertising up to 70% off. Online, there are a lot of sales of merchandise. So just doing anything they can to turn the inventory that they have into cash in order to meet some of their debt commitments. And another problem which they're experiencing is obsolete and excess inventory. So we all know that some retail is in fact seasonal. And this lockdown happened right at the beginning of the winter season when fashion and clothing retailers and bedding retailers and home retailers would have been actually beginning their winter season. So the first 5 weeks essentially of the winter season were lost, which really can't be made up as they slowly open up as well. So a lot of the stock which is brought in for winter 2020 now has to be held over for winter 2021. Resulting in additional costs in terms of storage, and possibly in a fashion environment, the outlook that when stores do indeed come around to their winter season, that stock is no longer in fashion and will have to be flushed through the system at a discount, and in some cases even donated to charity, which is kind of a business as usual policy for some retailers. So some real challenges for retailers. But on the other hand, consumers have also been hard hit by this virus. And we know all this. We're seeing food price increases and the cost of imported goods going up. And in fact, the cost of imported food, I didn't realize just how much I have in my normal monthly shopping basket of food, which is actually imported, because I've seen some increases there, which I thought were pretty significant. And this is coupled with the challenge of reduced disposable income of a consumer. And we know that many people have been asked to take a salary cut, and that there have been many retrenchments. So disposable income has been considerably reduced, and that, coupled with the challenges retailers have been facing, have caused significant challenges. So if we look at the questions and the dilemma that retailers are finding themselves in, they're looking for somewhere where they can actually generate some cash, where they can drive some growth. And we also have shoppers who still have money and are still able to shop, but wanting to shop safely, asking this question: how can I continue shopping and yet stay safe? And of course, the answer to that is really online shopping and online retail. So what we've seen as a result of COVID is a significant move to online retail with a real huge acceleration, unanticipated in terms of online retail, and some retailers who weren't that well established in their online stores scrambling to actually gear up their stores to cater for that growth. If you have a look at that chart on the side, they're really just the two numbers you need to look at. Is if you remember the first chart I showed you, it had a projection of about 6 billion revenue in 2024 for online commerce in South Africa. Well, by the end of 2020, we're going to be at 6 billion revenue in terms of online commerce. So in fact, it's essentially going to double this year, and it's really pushed forward our e-commerce adoption and growth by 2 years, attracting a new group of customers. And that new group of customers, I think, as they get used to buying online, will actually stick to online. So we could actually see the growth rate of e-commerce increase in South Africa. So e-commerce should increase at a faster rate than it had been increasing previously. And existing and new customers are just looking for value-adding e-commerce solutions to enhance the experience. So that there are increasing demands being made on e-commerce and online retailers to actually enhance that shopping experience. This I thought was quite an interesting chart from Accenture, and I'm not going to stay on it for too long, but it really shows the proportion of consumers globally who are doing more digitally than prior to COVID. And you're seeing almost a doubling in terms of these activities. So in home delivery, you're seeing an increase from 47% to 82%, which is a significant increase. And that's not saying they're exclusively going digitally, but that's the increase in percentage of population that are using digital services. The next one, that curbside pickup, is quite an interesting one, which we don't really have in South Africa at this stage. But with the technology available in our phones, there's no reason why somebody delivering a parcel to you couldn't actually locate where you are at a point in time and give you a call and drive up to you and hand your parcel to you if you're waiting for a bus or a taxi, or if you're in a restaurant, arrive at the restaurant and ask for you and make the delivery to you. But there we're seeing a significant increase in that, and in click and collect in stores of also nearly double. And then the last one that I really wanted to look at was that increase in store locker pickup and locker pickup. And I think that's something that we're going to see increase in South Africa as well. So if we look at some of the opportunities for last mile partners, really since lockdown, there's been a need to invest in safe contactless deliveries. So that has been something that the last mile partners have had to make an investment in, simply to ensure the safety of their drivers. And there has been a cost associated with that for couriers who are participating in this space. But I think there has been an increase in first-time delivery success. We have been seeing that because people are at home. So your first-time delivery success has gone up, so reduced the cost of repeat deliveries. So possibly those two have offset each other. But there are a number of other opportunities which exist. So as retailers grow their channel and more business is done via online, you will see more increased volumes, and we have seen increased volumes going through those channels. So there's probably the opportunity for better efficiencies for last mile providers, and probably increased asset utilization, and theoretically the ability to make more deliveries in one day. There's also the opportunity for last mile providers to provide additional services, maybe gift wrapping, maybe some kind of package creation solutions, and the opportunity for vertical integration. So where, for example, you may simply have been providing a courier delivery service, there's probably the opportunity as the size of the market increases to take away some of the responsibility of retailers for preparing a gift pack, for example, and for storing of their online merchandise into a warehousing facility. So the opportunity possibly for you to grow your business and start providing value-added services like that to retailers, because we know that picking eaches, as they say in the USA, out of a warehouse is much more difficult than picking bulk orders out of a warehouse. So you would be able to help them separate the two inventories. I think we're going to see an increase in third-party pickup solutions. And I think it's worth third-party last mile providers partnering with some of these guys. You'll know that DSV has rolled out a whole bunch of lockers at NGen service stations for pickup and drop off of various parcels. Paxi is a PEP solution where every PEP store now has a Paxi counter in it, where you can drop off a parcel or collect a parcel. So similar to the Pargo solution, which has also been around for a long time and works really well. And possibly an ideal solution for returns, because returns, as we know, is one of the more costly aspects of e-commerce. So these solutions, I think, are going to become more prevalent and will be better used. Then to use the word Uberization, I don't know if we ever knew that word would be coined, but it has become a word, and it has become a service which is provided, whereby the man in the street is able to offer services and delivery services as an extension of a last mile service provider, whereby some guy in an electrical van, which I had arrive at my door the other day, clapped out electrical van delivering a hoodie to me, for example. And I think we're going to see more and more of that, and possibly it's an opportunity to create some employment for people who are needing some employment. And then I think we're going to see an increase in technology solutions. I spoke about safe contactless delivery. If you look at how safe deliveries are being made internationally, we're starting to actually see self-driving vehicles making safe contactless deliveries to consumers. So a self-driving vehicle arriving, and then the consumer simply helping himself to his order out of that driverless vehicle. And I know they have been testing robots, and we've seen videos of robots delivering parcels to houses and putting a parcel down on the doorstep. I think that will continue. And in fact, I think it was Tuesday this week, we saw that Amazon have received approval from the FAA to actually start making drone deliveries, which would be another way to make contactless deliveries. So I think these are early days for those kind of technologies, but I think we can see that those are solutions which could be applied for contactless deliveries. Chatbots are another thing that can be used. A chatbot is really just an interactive application which runs on your cell phone. The technology to develop those is really prevalent and very easily available, with courses and training online on YouTube, for example. And possibly the usage of those for more intelligent interaction with customers to whom you're delivering. So I think we're going to see an increase in the use and development of chatbots in that area. If we look at some of the threats, of course, to established last mile providers, new entrants are always going to be a challenge. And we all know that when a new entrant arrives, he's going to provide very attractive, aggressive pricing to potential customers. So we need to be aware of that threat, and just need to be on our toes and be aware that we may need to be looking at pricing models and efficiency in our services that we offer to enable us to compete against some of these new entrants who tend to come in and snap at the heels of established partners. Uberization, again, could be a bit of a threat. So it's possibly an opportunity, possibly also a threat, simply because you could have a number of new Uberization or Uber guys getting together to create little delivery services, which would count as almost a new entrant into that marketplace. So it could potentially be a challenge. This new customer base could place an excessive demand on call centers, because if you're not a mature online shopper, you may not trust the process at this stage. And you will find more and more calls happening for follow-up on your purchases. So if Mary's bought a jersey for the first time online, she will actually keep phoning and following up. Where is it? When's it going to get here? What do I need to do to receive it? Which places additional demands on your call centers. Returns, of course, will increase with inexperienced shoppers, and returns is always going to be a problem for us in terms of online shopping. If you have inadequate technology managing your delivery service, your online delivery services, that could be a challenge as well. And customers are certainly becoming increasingly less forgiving. Customers are expecting us to get it right first time, and first time delivery, and to make sure that what they deliver is the right item. And even if you're 99.5% accurate, that last 0.5% can create a lot of noise and a lot of challenges in terms of dealing with the noise that is created by those incorrect deliveries. So we're going to have to pay attention to that going forward. And then finally, I thought I would just share some experiences which we've had within DSV in terms of managing last mile experiences. So the one challenge was this reduced delivery density with office blocks and office estates or office parks having significantly reduced occupancy, some down to even 15%. Now, I used to see it at the office prior to COVID. A take-a-lot vehicle would arrive every day, at least once a day, possibly 2 or 3 times a day, and the driver would unload any number of parcels for all of the people in the office where I was situated, which had about 300 people in it. So those people are now working from home. So the increase of deliveries to home has actually really increased what we need to be doing in terms of the home deliveries. And we know that residential deliveries are not as easy as deliveries into an office. And they're more costly as well. They're the challenges of address accuracy, which I think we've all experienced. And then the challenges of going into housing estates. They're the entry challenges with security being what it is. And there can indeed be long waiting times at a gate for someone to acknowledge that you may come into the estate to make the delivery. And that, of course, will affect your asset utilization and prevent you from making as many drops as you could make during a day. The PPE issues are another challenge. Simply the cost of equipping all of your drivers with PPE has been a cost. And then the differing standards for consumer communities. So some communities are very safety conscious and others are not. And some drivers are really uncomfortable about going into areas where people are not as safety conscious as in other areas. So that's been a challenge, and managing that has been tough. And then the contact deliveries themselves have presented some challenges. One can't manually check the ID easily without kind of sanitizing the ID before it's handed over, etc. So that isn't happening possibly as much as it should. So you have ending up with deliveries to the wrong individual, possibly, and that sort of thing. So there are some challenges in that area. As a result, we're seeing an innovation opportunity. We're working on developing a one-time PIN for face-to-face deliveries, and simply SMSing a 5-digit code with the notification that your delivery will arrive between 11 and 1 tomorrow morning, for example. And you don't need a technology to read the PIN. Simply the guy can verbally confirm the PIN number to the driver, and that will validate that he's delivering it to the right person. So there's the opportunity to go through that process and then follow the necessary safety procedures in terms of the handover of the parcel. One particular problem that we've had, and I think others will have also had this problem, we've seen many call centers move to working from home. I phoned DSTV recently, I had phoned Telkom recently, and you get the message, a lot of our call center agents are working from home, please be patient. And actually moving the technology to the homes for these people has been a real major exercise and a challenge. And part of the problem has been moving this technology into some high-risk areas where people happen to live. And we've actually had a number of incidents where there's been theft of what we've been trying to deliver. And we foresee a further problem actually from a reverse logistics point of view, when we actually now have to move all of this technology back to the offices as people start returning to work. We see that as a further challenge. So those are some of the experiences which we've had, and I'm sure you guys have many more, but I thought it might be helpful just to share that. And I think a lot of us, we're all in the same boat. We're all still trying to meet these challenges and to keep our customers happy, both the consumers that we're servicing and the retailers that we are helping in terms of this. So that's really all I needed to go through. And I know there will be the opportunity for questions, but I hope I've given you a feel for what the impact of COVID has been on online retail. And yeah, I think let's have some interesting questions. And I'd be interested to hear some of your experience as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Manga. This was extremely interesting. And I think a lot of the retailers can associate what you've been saying, especially Christian is one of the presenters after the break. So yeah, thank you. It's interesting to see how the world is changing, and surely we will have a different world after COVID. Should it even disappear now, suddenly we will definitely have a different world, and it will be sustainable, I think, as well, in terms of how we change and differently do things. So thank you very much for that. Could we ask our panelists to, switch on their videos and unmute themselves? Christian and Leanne of this afternoon, you're also welcome to join in already with this panel discussion. And let's allow the audience to ask some questions. I'm encouraging them to also text questions in the panel, in the chat room, or people can unmute themselves and they can ask questions. So let's give opportunity for questions. Thank you very much. I see Yanni Skuman has been unmuted. Yanni, you want to ask a question?
Not at the moment, Jose.
Thank you. All right, so just giving them some opportunity. There's quite a number of people on YouTube as well. Andrew Walker, thank you very much. You can ask your question.
Thanks, Harry. And thanks very much to all the speakers. It's been very interesting. I'm actually not in logistics, but I find the issues you're dealing with in terms of the challenges of today's times to be very interesting. Just with regard to to Mango's issues, I want to make two suggestions. One is the question of addressing, and particularly when you start to look at some of our less formal areas that you're having to do deliveries to. There is an amazing app called What 3 Words, and I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's becoming very, very popular because you don't need streets and numbers. And it's the world has been divided into grids, and your address is given by what 3 words, and there's no what 3 words the same grid square anywhere in the world. So I could have cat, dog, mouse, and that's where I say. And I think that could be an interesting introduction to delivery, where you don't need specific street and house numbers and things like that. Obviously, that becomes a little bit more difficult when you start to look at the vertical delivery. But from a horizontal point of view, at least you get into the right square, and then you can work your way around that. And the other thing I found interesting was your innovation regarding pins and approximate timing. One of the difficulties I often have is that I'm told that the delivery has been dispatched. 24 hours, 48 hours, 2 hours. And meetings or having to go out or something like that. It would be, I think, a lot more value-added service if people receiving deliveries have an indication that it's within a certain period. I understand that there are problems, but if a bracketed period could be given for the delivery, at least you've got some idea as to where you're going to be sitting at that time. But been very interesting presentations. Thanks very much. Thanks, Harry.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Andrew. Let's give the panel opportunity to respond.
Well, from my point of view, I think that that's very interesting. I actually, as you were talking about what 3 words, I had heard about it previously, and I'm pleased to see Joubert popped up the URL for that. It is interesting, and I think that's a very good suggestion. We'll certainly investigate how one could incorporate that into it. Yeah, the timing of deliveries, I think is certainly an area that we need to try and tighten up on, and I think we need to be using the technology to help us with that. I mean, I am as equally frustrated as you are when I'm told something is going to arrive between 9 and 1 and it arrives between 4 and 5 the next day, or arrives at 4 and 5 the previous day and something, and I get a phone call from some guy at my gate. I've got your parcel here and you're not at home. It is, I know it's irritating. And I think it's something that all last mile providers have to focus on tightening up on. And I think the technology and the chatbots are something which really could assist with that. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you, Mungo. One of the other panelists, Jason.
Yeah, so at DHL we have an app called On Demand Delivery, ODD, that our customers have access to. It's fairly workable because it looks at capacity, it looks at the amount of shipments that a driver has, and so it gives the customer an option to select the delivery timing window. It's usually within an hour window period. But it also gives the customers the other opportunities, not only for timing of deliveries, but also says to them, if you don't wish to have a specific time slot, these are the other alternatives available. So what it would do, it would say to the customer, we have a Swift box, what's a mobile locker box in this location, you can have your parcel delivered there. Or we can have your parcel held for pickup at one of our service points, and it'll give them options. So there is an app on their phone called On Demand Delivery. They can go, or they get a message saying, these are the delivery options for you. What would you like to select? And it's fairly accurate. It's capable of measuring the realisticness of those delivery windows. But absolutely, I agree with you, Mungo, that it is frustrating. Even though I work for DHL, I went to pick up a shipment the other day from a competitor because I bought it online, and I'm one of those people that I wanted now, not tomorrow, not Monday. So I decided I'll go and pick it up on Saturday from the courier company concerned. So the customer service agent sent me an email, and I jumped in my car with the wife in tow, and we drove all the way to Meadowdale. She sat in the car while I said, I'll just be 5 minutes, because they said to me, come in, it'll be ready for you, come in. So I actually drove over there, went into the reception, and from there, the whole experience just went downhill fast. From what was a brilliant customer experience of, wow, I sent an email on a Saturday morning. Within half an hour, the lady from customer services replied online to me, said, hi, Mr. Blackman, absolutely, you can come pick a parcel up. When will you be coming? I said, I'll be there in 30 minutes. Great. Got in the car, drove up, parked in the parking lot, went to the reception. They were having a party in customer service with painting the walls. They were taking selfies in the reception, didn't even know I was standing there waiting because I'm a silent customer. And I waited 10 minutes before I eventually walked into customer service and said, hey, I'm here to pick up my parcel. Oh, you're the guy who phoned? Yes. Or emailed us? Yes. I waited 45 minutes for them to go and find my parcel, despite them telling me it'll be ready in 30 minutes. I'll be there in 30 minutes. They said, great, we'll have it ready. Got there, I waited 45 minutes, and the whole customer experience, I was so excited. I said to my wife, I said, this is amazing. I don't really know this company that well, but this is great customer services on a Saturday morning. And then the whole experience was absolutely burnt by the interaction at the reception, but the promised timing wasn't there. And I was absolutely frustrated. My wife just said to me, she said, what is this? Why not just get a tent and pitch it in the parking lot? She said to me. So yeah, I share your frustration. So it's something we take passionately. So as I say, we have an app, we have an opportunity for our customers to make those decisions. Do they want to come and pick it up? Do they want an after hours delivery? Do they want a weekend delivery? A number of options are presented, but it's the commitment and the follow through on those commitments. When a customer says, I want to book a time slot, it's just unacceptable when those time slots are not accommodated by the courier company, because the customer then puts his life on hold to be available at that time and sits there and waits all day, and then the parcel never arrives. So yeah, it is a frustrating point and needs a focus and needs to be properly managed and technology leverage for that purpose.
Just on a further point, I think that often doesn't reflect on the actual courier. It actually reflects on the retailer, and it's an experience of the purchase that you've made from the retailer. And of course, it causes a bit of marital disharmony as well. If I left my wife in the car for 45 minutes,
very, very much so.
I'd pick up some flowers on the way home or something.
Yeah. Well, I got in the car and I had found my wife had been using my phone to speak to her sister for 45 minutes. So I said to her, oh, what's this call? Oh, she said, oh, while I was waiting for you, you decided to phone my sister on your phone. So she did make use of my facilities to pass the time.
Great stuff. Panel, yes, some questions from the guys on YouTube. Yes, a question from Memon Okaridia. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that. Saying, good morning. In reference to the previous speaker, how has the rate of reverse logistics affected supply chains during lockdown? So let me repeat it. How has the rate of reverse logistics affected supply chains during lockdown?
My true answer is really I don't know. I don't have a feeling for that, so I'm afraid I can't answer that specifically. But reverse logistics is a challenge for online retail. And maybe Jason, you actually probably you may have a better answer for that. But I quite honestly I haven't measured the impact. I'm unaware of a measurement of the impact of return logistics during the lockdown.
Yeah, I also I'm in the same boat as you. I haven't seen any significant. Normally, I would look at the complaints or the questions from customers coming through our online, what they call straight to the top forum. I've seen no issues on return logistics. I haven't seen any spike in return logistics. And one of our big e-commerce retailers, a partnership we have with an online retailer called eShop Africa, hasn't indicated any increased spikes in reverse logistics at the moment. So whether it's fear of goods being contaminated, maybe, and so people don't want to return them or don't want to order more goods, or I'm not sure of any patterns or trends that I can share with you. And I certainly haven't seen any major concerns about anybody coming to me and say, look, we've noticed an increase in the rate of returns. Do we need to gear up the business further? So yeah, I don't have any stats, unfortunately, either. The only thing I can tell you with returns is one of the challenges with international returns is the fiscal treatment of the returns. What we're finding, and I've actually dealt with a customer complaint about 4 weeks ago on this, an interesting point on that, on reverse logistics, especially with e-commerce cross-border, is the fiscal treatment of the duties that the customers paid on the original import. So when they get the first commodity or the first item and they bring it in and they say, oh, yep, I don't really like it, I want to return it, there's no real provision for the refund of those duties and taxes when you return it back to the retailer. And likewise, if the retailer is going to replace it with a different color or a different model, that new model is going to be subject to tax as well. So often what we're finding is that in reverse logistics, if a customer wishes to take opportunity on the 30-day free return, because my wife thinks I don't look good in pink, there's up to 3 different sets of tax charges that they will get levied on that single transaction. The taxes on the one shipper when it comes to them, the taxes when it goes back to the retailer, and then the taxes on the replacement item. So that's one of the big challenges for the e-commerce environment in Africa, particularly that I'm interested in focusing in on, is how do we maximize the opportunities for e-commerce, but also finding ways of working with the customs authorities to recognize the returns process within an e-commerce model, that it's not as easy as temporary exports where you have a registration with customs, they take a note and photograph of the item, and then when the replacement comes through, they can see it's been replaced under warranty or replaced under a returns program. So that's a bit of a development area that we're looking at, and I know that the WTO is also looking at how to optimize e-commerce returns, but I certainly haven't seen any spike in it in my personal experience in the last 4 months, 5 months.
Thank you, Jason. And the questions are coming in nicely here. The same person is asking which business improvement processes are logistics services prioritizing in these times? Which business improvement processes are logistics service providers, I suppose, prioritizing in these times?
Well, if I was to answer that, I'd say as many as we can. we work from inbound all the way through to deliveries. I mean, the efficiencies and accuracy in the warehouse is an area where we've been focusing. There have been certainly challenges on the inbound side, and we've had to streamline processes in terms of getting goods through the airline handlers. So those are some of the areas that we've been focusing on. But I think if you speak to all logistics service providers, it's been all hands on deck and scurrying like crazy, fighting fires. And it's only now, I think, that we're really starting to look at process improvements to try and mitigate the challenges going forward, should there be a reoccurrence of a supply chain disruption like that. So there have been certain problem areas, but it has really been a firefighting process up till now. And as I said, only now we're really looking at continuous improvement initiatives to actually mitigate this going forward. I'm not sure what other experiences. Maybe there's someone in the audience who may have more experience in that area.
I'm working with a air cargo company now, very large air cargo company now, where we're taking lots of their data and we're giving them better visibility into their general handling stations, which are manned by third-party agents, right? Because they have no visibility of what's happening there. There's no visibility, and there's a lot of paper trail as well, and I know that was talked about today. So what we're doing is we're helping them to digitize a lot of that paperwork, and bringing that information back and giving them a dashboard that gives them much more visibility as to what's happening and alerts them to those problem areas, so they can, so they know the what from the dashboard, but then they can dive right into the dashboard and kind of figure out the why. And then they can work with that third party, to Mongo's point, to improve the processes, so that, it becomes a much more seamless process, right? And customers getting their goods, because at the end of the day, they're shipping cargo to customers. They're shipping customer cargoes, and it's all part of the customer experience as well, whether it's B2C or B2B. So my suggestion would be, because what I find with a lot of these logistic companies is there's lots of data, but no one really has a handle on what's actually happening. So my suggestion would be to kind of figure out how you bring that data to help to drive some of those efficiencies.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you, Brian. Here's a question from Dr. Peter Kilburn, our host, University of Johannesburg. He's saying the future of physical stores are uncertain. Do you foresee a significant move away from retail stores, as we know them, to dark stores or even online stores only for retailers?
So I'm happy to give you my experience here in the UK. I can't speak to South Africa, but I can tell you in the UK that the high street has changed significantly. If you remember, 40 years ago when Margaret Thatcher was the prime minister here, we were called by the Europeans a country full of shopkeepers, right? That's not quite the case anymore. The high street has changed significantly. Before COVID, it was about that we were losing stores at a rapid rate. And before COVID, it was about experience. So go in there, try something, taste something. So you would find a lot of restaurants and cafes and so on and so forth. But now, post-COVID, that's not doable anymore. What we're finding as well with a lot of retailers is, whereas you used to have to go online for fashion retailers to try things on, you can use data and analytics and AI to put in all of your stats and get an image of what you would look like: a new shirt, a new suit, a new tie, a new dress, whatever. And not have to go physically in the store, because the challenge that you'll have in going into a store and trying things on is, I've tried things on, but has someone else tried that on before me? And then I'm leaving it there. Who's going to clean that? So we're seeing a lot of that movement now to that whole digital, using AI to drive a lot of that. And Stores will be there to do things like click and collect. Stores will be there to do things like look and view and maybe touch a little bit. But I think, you know, the whole market is changing here in the UK significantly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, M&S has just announced a whole bunch of store closures. Lowe's has just announced a whole bunch of store closures. M&S has laid off 7,000 people. So the shift to online, and M&S bought, you know, invested in Ocado, which is the biggest online you know, technology retailer here in the UK, 750 million. So I would say that that shift is happening pretty quickly.
I think from our point of view, I'm not sure, we're not where the UK is, and we don't have that showrooming that you guys are experiencing yet, but I see no reason why it shouldn't come. There's quite a big social experience about going to shopping centers in South Africa. But I don't know what's going to happen in South Africa. I'm sometimes amazed at the number of new shopping centers which keep getting built in South Africa. Maybe it's because pension funds don't have anywhere else to put their money, but they could end up with a bunch of white elephants in 10 or 15 years' time, I'm afraid.
I think so. So.
It'll be interesting to see as well how, you know, I go to shopping malls on a regular basis, not because I need to, but because I used to like the buzz and used to go and, you know, I'd be my most productive at a coffee shop with a cup of coffee, watching the people go past. And I've noticed over the last 4 months, I've been to Durban, I've been to Pretoria, I'm going to Cape Town next week. And the same buzz is no longer there. There's minimal crowds. Somebody was saying to me that a number of the shops at the V&A on the Cape Town waterfront are closed at the moment. So yeah, I think a lot of people are also starting to get the e-com experience. So if they haven't done e-commerce retailing before, I think COVID's given them a taste of the opportunities online and the seamless delivery process, which it is. I mean, I for one, you know, I love going to shops. I love walking around. I'm a window shopper and a retail therapist by nature. But, you know, with e-commerce, it's been, for me, great being able to order and then not have to worry about getting in my car, going to a mall anymore. So it'll be interesting to see whether this change in shopping habits and retail space usage is going to be long-term, or whether people are going to become, I'm trying to think of lethargic, getting back into a habit of thinking COVID doesn't exist, or forgetting that COVID does really exist in the background, and just throwing chance to the wind and going back into the malls. I have seen some changes in the patterns of traffic that I've been to the malls before COVID, during COVID, and in the last couple of weeks. So it's going to be interesting to see whether this is a long-term, or whether you're going to see a change in people starting to, as I say, throw caution to wind and say, you know what, we need to get on with normal life. And you can already start seeing it. I said to somebody the other day who came back from Durban, I said, when I went to Durban 2 months ago, the roads were empty. And that was partly because it was a travel ban. But now the guy said to me, oh, there was traffic. He says, you were stuck in traffic coming back from Durban. So I think people are going to start to try and get back into a sense of normalcy. And I think the patterns will increase and the trade, the foot traffic will increase, but it's an uncertain prediction as to what will really happen in the next number of years, in fact.
Yeah, there's one other variable, and I touched on it at the back end of my presentation, is the whole millennials, right? And they're driving a lot of this change in behavior because they literally can sit in their house all day long and just engage with people via social media and everything else, right? They don't need to go to schools. And you're going to see that, a lot of those millennials just using digital completely to do their whole shopping experience. And there won't be reason for them to go into stores. So, that's another factor. It's, regardless of COVID or not. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Here's another question from Yayeri Nalumansi. She's thanking the presenters for great presentations. Then she's saying, do you think the role of retailers is evolving to them being fulfillment centers for online shopping? I think that's very much what we've spoken about. Don't know if you want to comment on that.
I think there's not much more to really add. There's the click and collect environment, and what Brian was talking about as well. So, I'm not sure there's much more to add to that. In South Africa, it's going to be not for a long time, but possibly. But I think we're talking a good sort of 7 to 10 years out before we even start seeing anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead. All I was going to say is I think change is coming quicker than anyone ever expected.
Yeah, that's also true.
Yeah, so what we might have predicted to say 7 to 10 years out, I think will happen much quicker now, right? A lot of this stuff is going to be accelerated because we've got winter coming, and there's a big fear of another spike, right? And now the kids are all back in school, so there's a big fear of another spike. So that change is just going to be driven by what the virus does and that. So I wouldn't be surprised, Mongo, if you don't see that change accelerate a lot quicker in South Africa, especially because there's models to follow here in the UK, in the US, and Europe, so they can learn the mistakes. But from the mistakes.
Yeah, it does happen faster than you think.
Yeah.
And this could be a catalyst. Sorry, I was just going to say, COVID could actually be a catalyst for that in South Africa. We actually don't know what the true outcome is going to be. So you're quite right, Brian.
Yeah. Yes, a comment from Richard Malinga, also related, but you might like to comment. He says, would be interesting to know panel views on office space as we know it. It will soon be something in the past. So here he's referring to office space. Yeah, I think it's related what we've been talking about. I see another comment here from Natalie Beekers, that she's saying that retailers have not looked at their footprints for delivery. I would order a lot more online if more did delivery to my area. So there's a footprint to the delivery area. I don't know if some of you want to respond on that.
So what was the comment? I just didn't understand fully what the comment was.
So according to her, the footprint of delivery is not covered by all logistic service providers or retailers. Yeah, so she's talking about the footprint of delivery, that people should expand their footprint of delivery.
Sounds like you've got black holes where they don't deliver, right?
Well,
Yeah.
in outlying areas, that's a challenge. So, but I mean, that would be in an outlying area, and acknowledge that if you are kind of living not in the main center, then you can expect protracted delivery times. You aren't going to get same day delivery. You're going to get 3 or 4 day delivery. Unfortunately, that's just the reality, and it's basically related to the cost of servicing the outlying areas.
Okay, let's the opportunity then for anybody to unmute and ask a last question. Andrew, you're welcome to.
Can I come in on that last one? And I think,
Yes.
Mungo, it's not only outlying areas, but within urban areas as well. There was a particular service started by, I don't want to give names here, but they were a food delivery system and getting in with a book retailer. And when I made my inquiries, I was told, no, we don't deliver to the south of Joburg. We only do the north. And, you start to think, guys, we've got a population which is hungry for retail opportunities sitting in the south of Joburg, and people see it as a pariah. They don't see it as an opportunity. It's like the shoe salesman who goes into the Kalahari and he says, no one wears shoes, therefore no sales. Whereas the other guy goes and says, what an opportunity. And I think, we've got to look at some of the areas within the urban areas to say, okay, there's nothing happening here, but maybe there should be something happening here. And there are huge opportunities. It's not necessarily just the poor areas, but we have an incredibly mixed income area to the south of Joburg.
Yeah.
And there are massive opportunities. And I've had difficulties with a number of service providers on a number of issues. Yes, I live in the south, but we're trying to promote the south and get economic development happening here. And it's all happening to the north, guys, but we need it further to the south, please, as well. So it happens in urban areas as well. We still get the 24-hour delivery in the end, but it's making people aware that there is that gap that does need to be filled. Thanks, Harry.
Thank you, Andrew. Right, maybe let's ask our panelists for some closing comments. If maybe you can start there, Mungo.
I think just interesting questions, and I think nobody has all the answers, and I think dialogue is really helpful in terms of this. I mean, I've learned a lot through this session. Harry, thank you for inviting me, and I really just think, yeah, just talk to each other and learn from each other and share information, because we can all be winners and we can all benefit from that. So just thank you for the opportunity, Harry.
Thank you, Mungo. Really appreciate it. Brian?
Yeah, I mean, I think the lessons that we've seen here in the UK and across Europe is, look at the data. The data is going to tell you a lot of what's really happening. And continue to look at data because consumer behavior is changing rapidly. It's so dynamic. It's just unbelievable. I've never seen in my 30 years of working in this industry in retail consumer behavior change so quickly. And so we advise retailers to continue to look at the information and look at the shifts and the patterns and try to make sense of that. Because, that way they can better serve the customer and they'll drive loyalty that way. And so, yeah, that's what I would suggest. So.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Jason?
So yeah, I'm aligned with a lot of the comments being made. It's been quite the experience. I've been manning the Joint Operations Center for Africa based in Johannesburg for the past 6 months, coordinating flights and operational activities. And the challenges and the changes, and I've been 25 years in logistics and never had to adjust and adapt as rapidly as I have had to in the past 5 months. The innovations that we've been seeing during COVID, the responses, how we've had to adjust our business models, how rapidly society is settling into the new norm. Now when you go to the shops, and in the old days, I was joking on Facebook saying, when a person walks into a shopping mall with a face mask and a face shield on, covering their mask, it'll be, what are you doing? These days, it's if you don't have a mask on, well, what are you doing? But the new norm is settling in. I'm certainly seeing people's behaviors, the activities, the way that we do business now. It's now common for us just to sanitize pallets when they arrive at the airport. It's not really considered a hindrance to our business anymore. We're settling into the new norm. People are getting used to the change in behaviors, the change in activities, the need to wear a mask. It's now common for me. When I get in my car, the first thing I do before I even switch off my car, my left hand goes out to reach for my mask. So it's becoming an accepted part of how we now are adjusting to a new norm. And I just think it's given people an incredible opportunity to innovate. I think the e-commerce sector has certainly latched onto this very nicely, and I don't think they've abused it. I think they've latched onto an incredibly good business opportunity, especially in a situation with a pandemic like COVID. And I think we're seeing some return to normalcy now. We've seen a lot of the airlines starting to resume their regular flights, Emirates, Qatar Airways, KLM, Virgin. So we're settling back into the new norm. But the future is very unpredictable as to when things might return to a further degree of normalcy. For example, in South Africa, when will our international borders reopen, etc. So great times ahead. I think a lot of companies are taking away a lot of lessons in terms of business continuity planning, contingency planning, and even more so, they're realizing the benefits. For me, as an example, working from home. A lot of my staff, for example, have said how much more productive they've become by working from home. Not having to take an hour's trip into work every morning, an hour's trip home. They've got 2 hours extra productivity a day, reduced costs, and they seem a little bit happier, unless you've got children, that is. It seems to be an interesting shift in the way that we now operate and settling into the new norm.
Jason, thank you so much. Very interesting indeed, a new way of life. Ladies and gents, let's give these panelists a big hand for their time they spent with us today in preparing for the presentations. We really appreciate it. You're great companies, and we really appreciate your participation in this event. So take care, and yeah, hopefully we see a lot of you again with the Transport Forum. Thank you very much.
Stay
Welcome.
safe.
Thanks, Harry. Thank you.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Ladies and gents, what we're going to do is we're going to take a break up till 11:30, and then we've got another exciting presentations from retailer and from the logistics industry, and then again short questions and answers. So I'm going to put up a timer for us, taking us to 11:30. So go and grab a cup of coffee, take a quick break, and we'll see you again at 11:30. Then we're going to listen to a retailer of note, Christian van Zyl from Ikambi Distribution. So thank you very much. See you in 20 minutes time. Thank you very much. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Great seeing you again. Hope you had a nice cup of coffee, taken something to bite, perhaps. We're back here again for another 2 great presentations. And we're still busy with the topic being the impact of the COVID-19 crisis on e-commerce, opportunities for logistics service providers and retailers. And talking about retailers, we've got a retailer of note, Christian van Zyl from e-commerce distribution. He's the managing director. And he's going to talk to us about the impact of COVID-19 on e-commerce and supply chain. Christian, thank you so much for agreeing to present. I know retailers do not like to share their IP and so on, but been willing to share with us. So thank you very much for your kind gesture. We're looking forward to listening to you. Thank you, Christian.
Thank you, Harry, and it's a privilege to be a part of these the conversations. And I think there's not necessarily a lot of IP to share. I think if there's anyone in the industry now that can tell you with a lot of certainty exactly what's going on, I would take it with a pinch of salt. I think it's very, very interesting times we find ourselves in. I look towards experts like Brian with over 30 years experience. I've got just over 11 years worth of experience with e-commerce, but it feels like I'm standing here today that I've got about 6 months worth of experience. That's what I'm left with, because it doesn't matter what data I look at or what the numbers provide me. Every day I learn something new, and it feels like I'm learning remarkable things every day. So again, thank you for having me. And I think what I want to try and achieve today is just color in the information from Brian and from Mungo and all the speakers and what they are seeing on their side. So first off, let me share my screen over here. Just a brief background to our business. We're what we refer to ourselves as a distribution company. And I'm lucky to have worked with the companies that has presented here today. And we look at the complete supply chain all the way from origin all the way to the end user. So our business is essentially from a business to business side, we are the importers and the brand custodians of certain lifestyle brands. Wahoo Fitness, who makes indoor trainers and cycling equipment. Hoka One, which makes premium running shoes. Schwalbe, tires for cycling. Kask, helmets for cycling. So very much in this lifestyle of fitness and well-being, physical well-being business. So from origin and working with the brands, we are responsible for getting the containers packed in the east, shipped all the way here, get it through customs and clearance, all the way to our warehousing. And so our roadmap is from procurement, as you can see on the slide, freight forwarding, working with a couple of freight forwarders, including DSV, Toll Group, and a couple of other specialists in that area. We do our own warehousing. We courier all the products to both customers and to retail stores. We manage the customers, support customer queries. We're tracking parcels in many instances, with always our end destination or end goal being a customer returning all the way to us and repurchasing from us and so growing our brands. And within this basket of brands, we've seen a boom that is something that again I've yet to see in my history, or hopefully we relive some of this boom again. And I have to add that it's not necessarily only on the e-commerce side, but just a demand in general. it was interesting to hear Brian speak about the growth and demand on Maslow's basic hierarchy. But when it comes to self-esteem products, customers looking for ways to keep themselves fit, but also buying high-end products, we've seen an unprecedented growth and demand for products that I think customers, new entry customers to, for example, the lifestyle industry, has to be included into that. But what I want to try and focus on today is twofold. Firstly, where we've seen some significant challenges, and I just want to speak from our experiencing. The procurement side, working with some of these major brands internationally, has been relatively straightforward. The supply chain has been affected to a certain extent internationally, where certain items that make up a product was difficult to get hold of. That was especially when China initially went into lockdown, but it kind of eased up into February and March, and we were able to start getting products on the way to us. The biggest challenge that we faced around March, April this year was from our freight forwarding division. Not being sure, can we actually import products into the country? How will stuff be cleared? Under what will it be cleared? And we actually ended up with a disastrous point in our business when our containers started ending up in Durban, but we were unable to clear them due to lockdown. And we were charged astronomical fees for having our containers detained, essentially, but before it even reached SARS by the shipping agents in Durban Harbour. And there was so much uncertainty on the legislation of whether they can actually get the containers out of port, that we ended up paying incredible amounts of fees and penalties just for having our containers sit in no man's land for over a month. I think after that, when goods started clearing, we were able to get our products, and warehousing isn't an issue because we actually have our products warehoused ourselves. But the second part, or the second biggest challenge, was having courier companies act on that demand. Obviously, there was absolutely no aeroplanes going around, and we had to solely rely on road freight to get products both to stores and to retailers. And just the sheer volumes of a product being on the roads, that added up to 15 days at a point on our ability to get products into either stores and end users. And I guess the big challenge for us was to continuously update our customers and continuously explain to them why these delays are occurring. And I think when it comes to business, we always have a couple of understanding retailers. But when you look at a business to customer point of view, the end user, it's many of them can't fathom why operational challenges are there due to a pandemic. And I always jokingly say there's nothing as unreasonable as an end user who just clicked something online and expects it to be delivered the next day. And I think when we talk around even e-commerce, I think we are a couple of years behind, because we still have a big amount of customers that are new to e-commerce, but the expectation of e-commerce is the same as what you would expect from a bricks and mortar store. You click it, you get it. We have a very instant gratification type of customer, and a lot of education that still needs to happen. And I guess our biggest challenge will be in the long term to almost regain the the customer to have them repeat deliveries. So almost regain a certain amount of trust. And I'm excited to hear from the other speakers involved today that there's so much innovation coming along. There's so much talk about new ideas. And I think in a entrepreneurial and forward-thinking country like South Africa, we will be able to solve a lot of these. Now, specifically talking regarding online, I want to. We've got as Ikambi, we've got about 5 different online stores that we run. Bicycle is one of them, one of our oldest online stores, and I want to run through some interesting data, and I think a lot of it resonates with what Brian spoke towards. Now, please don't share this data with necessarily everyone, but it's nice to show you a little bit of what's happening in our world. Again, a lot of what we see is absolutely unprecedented. We've had 108% customer growth year to date, which means we've just absolutely burst out of our seams with new customers asking questions and looking at what we have to offer. Year to date, 128% business growth. We've essentially doubled our business. But something I want to speak towards is our profitability decline. And there's a couple of factors that has contributed to that. That 4% decline in profitability is not necessarily something that gives me sleepless nights at this stage because, hey, we've grown 128%. The quarter 1 versus quarter 2 turnover is a very interesting breakdown to look at, and you can obviously see I didn't name it very properly, but the light purple quarter turnover has absolutely exceeded any of our expectations in terms of our business growth, and it's obviously you're able to see that the last couple of months after lockdown has been an absolute it's blown the ceiling off in our business. And interestingly enough, it's what Brian also mentioned in his presentation. If you look at some of the months, our basket size, and again, it's very difficult to analyze some of these data just very quickly off the cuff, but our parcels shipped in the 4th month of this year has actually decreased, but the basket size and the turnover for that basket increased remarkably. And it comes to show that, just as Brian mentioned, some people might be buying for more than one person almost in a family, maybe buying a couple of things when lockdown hit. But as soon as lockdown went into its full blown measures, our business saw almost a 5-fold increase in turnover and high value ticket items. So we were absolutely overwhelmed with just the amount of sales. And I think to everyone's point, the growth for e-commerce have just exceeded our expectation in general. It was almost a burst of sales and orders, and it's starting to slowly taper down. I think what makes this burst so remarkable in the bicycle business, and specifically the reason I want to highlight the bicycle business, is the fact that cycling should only really grow in summer. In the summertime, it's our peak, but we've seen the biggest month of our history, essentially, happen in winter, which means there's just this new demand for e-commerce, this new demand for using online, and people realizing that, hey, it's really a comfortable way of buying. I think when it comes to the profitability decline, we've seen a couple of challenges with both our importing as well as getting the product to the customer. some erratic fuel levies, a couple of things that's been out of our control, including some of the import costs that we didn't expect, contributes to this profitability decline. Sudden increases in product pricing also affected our business in a slightly negative way. But we weren't necessarily, from an e-commerce store, the one thing to always be careful for, and it contributes to our profitability, is to not look like you are price gouging just because there's a pandemic at hand. So even though some of the prices went up in the market, we weren't necessarily able to just follow price increases. And that is one of the big reasons we've had a profitability decline during the year. But all in all, Brian mentioned that an e-commerce strategy, I like the restart, revive, and reinvent, the 3 R's that he wants to almost implement to businesses. And I think from what we are seeing is the 3 opportunities for us as a e-commerce business is to almost restock, to regain trust, and to repeat business to these customers. We've got customers that is so new to the e-commerce world that the biggest challenge that we'll have in the short term would be to regain the trust and make sure that customers get a consistent experience when shopping online. And when we start to know our customer, which we do, we are learning that the supply chain issues and delays is the biggest area of concern for us when it comes to trusting e-commerce stores. What I've done as well is just I've created a small SWOT perception as a client, where we're seeing certain opportunities, strengths, and weaknesses, and that is both for getting freight forwarding into the country, as well as for couriers, where we every day work with a couple of challenges essentially. So I would say one of the strengths that we are seeing when it comes to our supply chain is the continued personalized services we're receiving. Again, looking at the presentations, there's a lot of drive to have a personalized interaction with us as a customer, and how we can actually increase our experience for the end user. These expanded services, and I'm also looking forward to the next speaker, talking about what are these new features, what are these new options to just either fast track service to customers, but also to better the experience for our customers. And again, the flexibility in managing requests. I think one strength of our courier partners, our freight forwarding partners, is to have a certain amount of flexibility in a country with a high demanding customer. And it might be the type of customer that we get. We work with a high LSM customer base, but the fact that we have some flexibility in delivery times, the ability to change delivering options in short notice. And I think that's a key strength to what we've got to offer in our industry. Some of the weaknesses we've seen is efficiency in IT integration, and us having a white label range of websites, the ability to really integrate systems with agility and efficiency, and sometimes slow updates and slow feedback when we need it most. The one challenge we also have, and it's partially because we've got such a complex, I guess, delivery network in South Africa, is inconsistent pricing tiers. As a business, we still rely on getting 3 quotes for every single parcel we ship out. Whether it's from, we get quotes from DSV, from MDS Delivery, and we can get multiple quotes very quickly. But you know, some of the challenge we're seeing with our couriers to customers is inconsistent pricing. To, you know, one distributor, one courier service might see Somerset West in Cape Town as a regional area, where another might see it as part of a main center. And there's just so many inconsistencies with all our with our regionals and areas, and how that affects pricing is a pretty big part of our business. Some of the threats I did speak to earlier very quickly. Red tape and at port and government inefficiencies. I know that Transnet's doing the best they can, but it doesn't always seem that way from where a distributor is sitting, just because there's sometimes so much uncertainty and sometimes too little clarity on what the legislation is, like we've experienced now. And we appreciate the fact that it's a pandemic time, but it was detrimental to a certain extent in our business when we were unable to get answers and clarity on certain things. And another key threat is the delays in deliveries, and that inevitably slows up returning customers, and that's something that we all want. Some of the opportunities. It's better key account management. I think we do receive a lot of personal touch from our courier or logistics partners, but I always feel there's room for improvement to be closer to us as a business, and find creative ways to build on the strengths that's already there, and also then again bettering delivery times. As an e-commerce customer, we sometimes feel it's difficult to even compete against a Takealot that has their own courier infrastructure, where we rely on the external courier companies to increase better delivery times. And I think being a part of key account management, it should be to report on that, to speak to it, and speak to how that is being improved, and what the creative ideas are around that. And I think you know, it's talking to the points of what Mungo said. Is how do we automate tracking and tracing, and how does it become such an easy integral part of what we do, and how we see packages. And I am again excited to see the future of how this evolves. But that is undoubtedly the biggest opportunity to create a faster, smoother flowing process to customers. And I think logistic partners, the courier companies, the operational companies, almost needs to be a closer partner to e-commerce stores, because I do believe a big success for e-commerce will be on how efficiently and how smooth the processes flow in, or the packages flow towards customers, because that's inevitably going to create repeat customers that believe in the efficiency of e-commerce in the future. And in the last 11 years, Bicycle has enjoyed a 4.9 star rating on Google. We've gone down to 4.7, and the only reason for that is slow deliveries to customers in their minds. I think it wasn't necessarily slow, but you know, increasing that efficiency is going to build momentum for both of us. And so that is just the long and the short of our business. And I'm happy to answer any questions. And thanks again, Harry, for making me a part of this this panel and conversation.
Thank you so much, Christian. I think this was an excellent presentation. That SWOT analysis, I think a lot of people had a careful look at what you've been saying in that SWOT analysis. It's not always that one sees, something like that from a retailer. So yeah, great. I think your retaining customers is a huge responsibility, obviously, and it's not always something you have control over or remotely. So that surely is a big challenge. So thank you for sharing with us. I'm quite sure people will have a few questions for you during the panel discussion. And
thank you. I did squash in a lot of information in my allotted time. So I hope someone, it was of value to someone. Thank you for the time.
Definitely so. Definitely so. Thank you, Christian. Right, let's have a look then at our program again. Our next presenter then, the last presenter, but not the least, is Dr. Leanne de Blanche. She's a logistics consultant for Life Freight. And she's going to talk to us about supply chains, adapting to change and remaining agile. Thank you, Leanne. Looking forward to your presentation.
Thanks, Harry. I'm just going to quickly share my screen with you. Okay, please let me know if everyone's seeing my screen.
It's perfect, thank you.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, so let's just quickly introduce to who Life Freight is. I'm sure we're fairly a new name to some of you attending the conference today. So on the line, we also have our team members, Dr. Sjoerd, Ria, Nicolas, and Andrea. So what does Life Freight do? We are cargo suppliers, and we're purely a e-platform application. The app is smaller than 1 meg, and you can download it on your phone, on your tablet, or your personal computer. And the great thing about Life Freight is that it's totally free. It's a free application you can download, and the only billable aspect of the application is you pay for the kilometers you travel per load. So anything above 500 kilograms, we charge you 50 cents per kilometer. And anything below 500 kilograms, you only pay 1 cent. So I would say that's a very good deal. So what our vision is for Life Freight is we really want to enable all the cargo suppliers and transporters to have a platform that is readily available for you and also free, especially I think in South Africa. Not everyone has the funds available for very huge amounts of licensing and platform fees. And we also want to improve your profitability. So what Life Freight does, it's also, we cut out the brokerage fees that you normally pay. So we cut out any phone calls, so you're not going to phone any brokers to check on where your load is and where the truck is at the moment. It's all updatable in the app. You can track your truck with a ping address. As I mentioned, there's no broker fees, there's no subscription fees, also no licensing fees. You also don't have any on-prem technology sitting where you need to upgrade. The software will update with itself. And also a bit more environmental friendly. We aim to cut out empty loads with the app and also to increase your agility and response times. And then if you are a transporter or cargo supplier, you can track your loads vice versa. So you will always be able to see where your trucks are tracking. So Life Freight, we're currently available in Australia, Africa, the EU, UK, Madagascar and New Zealand. So the app is rapidly evolving, and also now during COVID, we've seen much more transporters coming on board and using the app. And as I've mentioned, you can download it. It's readily available on the website and it's absolutely for free. Just to quickly show how it will look like on your cell phone. So if you're a transporter, you can just log on. You can see any pending loads, your transit loads, anything that's late for delivery, and also loads that's already delivered. And there's a very quick drop-down menu where you can manage your vehicles, you can check your trip history, your quote history, and also the settings of the app. And this is a screenshot of how it will look like on your desktop if you are a transporter. For cargo suppliers, exactly the same. We have the same login details, and you can also track your loads, anything that's overdue or delivered. And then also you can add a load, check your load history, and also track your quotations. And then we also have the same interface available on your laptop or your tablet. So let's quickly then chat about managing risk in our new normal, which is, I think, the way going forward. It's definitely a new normal for us. So I have some stats to show, which I found quite interesting. So what we saw during especially during the lockdown period, was we saw a very increase in website visits and a decrease of applications being used. So Facebook, Netflix, YouTube, everyone was at home. There was a massive increase in using the websites because there wasn't really the need for application, for a mobile solution for watching Netflix on the go or Facebook to track some updates. And we saw the behavior of the consumers shifting and changing. And I think this set the cadence of what was to come, especially for e-commerce. And if we just look at some of the shares apps like Google Duo or Nextdoor or House Party, also a considerably large increase of usage we saw. And we saw that with social distancing, we are now seeking other ways to communicate. And I think this conference is also a very good way to show that we are now doing conferences virtually. And this one is obviously making use of Zoom. And then talking of Zoom, this is what the Zoom visits did, specifically in the USA. From January until March, you will see a very high increase of what Zoom did. Google Classroom also increased with everyone not being able to go to school. And Zoom obviously being mostly a free application if you stick to your time limits. We saw a very large download rate for Zoom compared to something like Microsoft Teams or Google Hangouts. If we then look at the website traffic we saw just from a period from January to March, we globally hit 14.34 billion website visits on e-commerce platforms. And then again, I think lots of the speakers also alluded to this point that the consumer market shifted where we want to now trade online and we're not going out anymore to any of the stores. And then obviously with the e-commerce boom, we saw Shopify, eBay, Amazon, Alibaba just absolutely smashing record highs of their share prices from last year until this year. You can see there's a staggering increase on what that did. And I think also that also set the trend going forwards to what we need to do to adapt to these upcoming changes. So some very sad stats from South Africa was 84% of the businesses reported that their turnover was below normal range. 51% unfortunately had to discontinue their trade partially. And 30% of the workforce were unable to meet business demands, and we saw that some of the shops have closed. I think someone mentioned that there's some shops in the waterfront that also had to close, these businesses and restaurants. So I think then the very crucial and preceding question is then how can we manage this going forward, and how can we be a bit more agile in managing our risk during COVID? So what we saw with COVID is COVID completely rewrote the rules of e-commerce. I think we definitely were supposed to go this route to being more available online, but I think it should have taken another 10 to 15 years for us to get where we are now. But obviously, I think one of the jokes were, what drove your business to become more agile and more available to the consumers? And everyone answered COVID. So I think sometimes we shouldn't only look at the negative, but also look at the positive points to what can drive a business to change. And some of the shifts and significant changes we saw was shelter in space consumption, which we know more consumers tend to consume products in the safety of their own home. We also saw lower spending on experiences, which is less external activities. We're not going outside anymore to do some group activities. We don't want to go to the movies because it's a bit, it's not safe at the moment. And we're also seeing that cloud-based platforms are now becoming the norm, that we don't want on-prem hardware that, it gets stuck, that you're not allowed, you can't work from home if you have a very on-prem situation going where employers aren't really, safe going in if you have that type of hardware. So we're seeing the e-commerce moving to a multi-channel, moving away from multi-channel to omni-channel, and the business modules are changing. We saw some of the e-commerce giants in South Africa take a lot, really shifting the way they do their deliveries. And also Shoprite has introduced what they call their wallet solutions, which is trading money without using cash. So it's contactless cash. We generally try to say that, okay, e-commerce is booming and it's very easy for some of the higher LSM groups to, just click and you get your delivery. But in South Africa specifically, not everyone has the luxury to have access to a computer or to even order goods online. So Shoprite has partnered with some of the banking systems like FNB and Standard Bank, where you can actually deposit cash into a wallet, and Shoprite is then allowing you to transfer cash to the wallet, where you can use the wallet to do your shopping. I know some of the retailers have also started looking into the solution. Some clients I know have already started looking into partnering with Shoprite and also with FNB or Standard Bank to get that solution with them as well. So we can also cater to customers that doesn't have access to technology. We've also seen a rapid change in lead times, and again, I think I'm repeating some of what the key speaker said, is that our consumers are less, they don't want to wait very long for any new goods that's coming in. They want a fast response, so they're becoming less willing to wait for us for long lead times. And I think the key is with the rules being rewritten for e-commerce and the changes shifting, is we now need to start aligning ourselves with partners which are more agile. So we want to shift partnerships to technology that can assist us to reach our goals, and also sometimes to have some bespoke solutions. So something like the Shoprite wallet might be a bespoke solution now, but it will definitely going forward become a kind of new norm for something in South Africa, that if you don't have a credit card, you don't have access to the internet, you have a cell phone and your wallet is available on your SIM card. So then the question is, the agility will then decrease our vulnerability. So, which means if we can adapt quickly to what the environment is giving us, we will become less vulnerable as a business. So we need to ask ourselves, have we adapted to the needs of our consumers? Our need for a quicker and more cost-effective supply chain, I think more now than ever, because we see the increase in volumes is crucial. And then we need to ask ourselves the questions, are we flexible enough to make the changes that's necessary within our business? We've seen staggers such as Nokia, or even these videos that's been left behind the curve because they weren't quick enough to adapt with the changing environment. And by adapting to change, we have to then align ourselves with partners to enable us to become more technology enabled for things such as payments and orders or delivery. And then the next question is then, can we handle scale? We've seen some of the retailers in South Africa trying out new things. Sorry, our electricity just came on from load shedding, if you hear some background noise. So we need to ask ourselves the questions, can we handle scale? And some retailers tried to, quickly jump into the market with new applications or new delivery methods, and we saw quickly some of them failed. And the risk with that is that you get very quickly bad customer service, which kind of sticks to you with a long time. So we have to make sure that when we start partnering or introducing new technologies to our system, that we do not fail to launch. You typically need to try and do it on a small scale before you do it for your whole business. So we need resilience, and we have to maximize costs with minimizations. So then the next question is, okay, so now how do we play in this new COVID game? And the one answer is get to know your customers. You have data available. AI, machine learning, and all big data is becoming very much the norm now to make predictions of how your consumers will react going forward. So you need to understand your consumers' and the customers' needs and preferences. You need to start harmonizing with different sales channels. So we're moving away from the multi-sales channel to more an omnipresent environment. And we need to ensure high data management standards, because you can't predict with accuracy if the data is not clean enough. You also then need to start balancing the operating model, where you need to start looking at decentralizing some of your inventory to closer customers to shorten your lead times. And you also need to adjust your IT to fit your needs to the customers. And also, again, this highlights that you need to understand your customers' wants and needs. And then again, you need to adapt your infrastructure. Generally, I think high capital investments now to brick and mortar is probably not the best way forward in the environment we are now. I think we also had the question today, what will happen to office spaces going forward? I myself definitely see that there will be a reduction in office space, because I think we saw, and lots of companies saw now during COVID, that's actually not, 100% necessary to go into the office to get things done. I myself have been working from home since March, and there has been no difference in how I operate or engage with customers or colleagues. And then the next one, keep trial and error mentality, is it again just highlights, if you want to start testing new solutions going forward, start small, because if you fail, you can fail spectacularly. So I would say, if you start, implementing new technology or new ways of working, start small with a test and see how it goes and how your customers react to it. And I'm done. That was me. I think I walked quite quickly through that presentation. Just stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, and that was very interesting. Thank you very much. And to be agile, I think that's so important. And clearly, you guys understand the game. You and Christian's presentations actually complement each other quite well, because you guys talking about, where the tacky hits the tar. And we really appreciate that. So we're going to have a panel discussion now, questions and answers. So if Christian also can come in and unmute himself, and we will appreciate that, and we can give the audience opportunity to ask questions. They can either text questions or unmute themselves, and the guys in YouTube can text questions. Don't see any text questions yet, but let's get people. You're welcome to unmute and ask questions. Let's give them some time to get themselves aligned. See, Mango is also still available. Thank you, Mango. Appreciate that. Leanne, while we're waiting for the other people, maybe I can ask you, Live Freight, you guys. So in other words, you're also making use of partners to do the logistics work, and then also you the interface between the logistics service providers and the consumers. That's how it works.
So we actually don't use any partners like a broker. So what you can actually do is you can download the app, or you can register on the website. And you can, if you own a driver, if you have a small delivery truck even, or if you have a massive fleet of 10 to 100 trucks, you can register on the app, and then you manage your own loads. But what it does is because you can track your trucks in real time and ping the driver to ask where he is with his loads, we really try and take out that third party logistics provider that generally tracks your loads and phones where the driver is. So I think that's what makes Live Freight so beautiful, is because we're trying to reduce the cost, especially in environments such as South Africa. There isn't that need to make use of thousands of partners to get the job done in the end of the day.
Okay, so you're connecting people, the forwarder and the customer, everybody, you're connecting them through your platform. That's great. So
Yeah.
what you get, in other words, loads being available, and yeah, great stuff. All right, so here's a question from Paul Sessions. Paul is from the. Paul, don't you want to unmute yourself and ask your question for Christian?
How's it, Harry? How's it, Christian? Thank you for the presentation. This has been a really fruitful set of speakers. So thank you again to the Transport Forum and Harry for putting this together. Yeah, I'm Paul Sessions from eThekwini Municipality, working for the Transport Authority. Christian, you made a comment where you indicated that port delays at the Port of Durban were a fairly big problem and driving up costs and some unpredictability. Is this an ongoing problem, or specifically a problem that you've just experienced during lockdown and COVID-19 period?
Yeah, I think it was very specific to the lockdown period. I think a couple of SARS inspections turned into, nobody knowing who to hand over what to who. And so it was very specific to lockdown and uncertainty over what can and cannot be done during the period. So I don't think it's necessarily a ongoing challenge, specifically not something we've seen the last couple of weeks.
Right, thank you, Christian. More questions? Now, people are commenting about the good presentations you guys are doing and so on. The presentations will be shared on the website, guys. You can download them complimentary.
Harry, sorry for me coming up late. I was traveling, so
Thank you, Rian.
but I am here. If there's any other questions that anyone wants to ask me, they're more than welcome about Live Freight.
Thank you, Rian. Appreciate your time.
Harry, while you're waiting, maybe I can just comment a bit further on that, the exorbitant costs that were charged for storage over COVID. Customs introduced something via the shipping lines that if you weren't notified 72 hours before arrival, that freight, what was on board and what was arriving and what was going to be cleared, they would charge you these exorbitant costs, and a number of retailers just got hit by that. And it was ridiculous what they were charging, and there was no real notification and communication of that. So, I mean, it was just unbelievable what some of these companies have been charged. So, Christian, I really sympathize with you. I've spoken to a number of retailers and gone through numbers of boxes of tissues, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I think the specific instance, we were actually charged by the shipping line.
Yeah, that's right.
It was to the tune of 180,000 Rand we paid. They were a little bit forthcoming, but a European company still, so didn't really care too much about our challenges here.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what driven down some of our profitability.
Yeah.
I guess the frustration for us was, not being able to communicate with someone, just giving us a straight answer.
Yeah.
But it's the way the cookie crumbles, I guess, in a pandemic. But
yeah,
it was painful.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I just heard, Harry, if I can just add on to what was said earlier by Leanne. I just heard when I came in that she was talking about the tracking. I don't know what was discussed completely, but I just want to emphasize, because a lot of people are getting worried, like the car track and the tracker systems. We are not replacing truck security tracking devices or monitoring systems in terms of security. What our application does is it can give you a real-time tracking of cargo on the move. And both the owner of the truck or the manager of the fleet can see every vehicle's movement whilst carrying a load, as well as the controllers or the administrators that allocates the loads to the trucks that's logged into the app. And then also on the cargo supplier side, whoever the cargo mover is who has offered the cargo to be moved, both him and his subordinates that is also registered on his app can also follow in real time the tracking of that cargo.
Right, great solution, Rian. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm still waiting for people to ask questions. Seems to me they're stunned by your presentations. Okay, let's then conclude by closing remarks of our panelists. It seems to me the people are happy what they've seen and heard. And I see there's a lot of people on YouTube as well, but they're shy of asking questions. So let's then conclude. Maybe we can start with closing remarks. Rian, while we've got you on the screen, maybe you can do some closing remarks for us in terms of the freight, the live freight solution and where you guys are going.
Yes, thank you very much, Harry. Thank you so much as well for the opportunity to have Live Freight on this panel. It's the first time that Live Freight is on a panel such like this. We are new in the market. We are a disruptive game changer. Our business plan is different from all the existing business plans that's available and platforms. I think Leanne has emphasized it, but what I can just highlight is everybody's concerned nowadays about costs. And Live Freight brings the opportunity to both transporter and the cargo movers or the freight forwarders to use this application to expose their cargo in real time and then get quotations in real time from the transporters. And both parties can then monitor the cargo on the move, meaning also the drivers and the vehicles, and that is at no cost. We are only charging a few cents, 50 cents in South Africa per kilometer for a cargo supplier's load that was successfully obtained by the transporter. So that tells you that long distance haulage will cost you about 600 rands per load, and then you have all these facilities and also the unique first time function that we have on the application for transporters, no phone calls. You can just search for any loads from any town or city in future date frame specified by yourself per cargo category and per weight category as well, and at no cost. And you can then, that's our whole idea, is to just open up the possibilities. If you have a truck, for an example, in Cape Town next week, Wednesday, you can search for next week, Wednesday, Cape Town. And if you are clever, you can search up to 300 kilometers around Stellenbosch, and you will find all the loads that's available, Maritzburg, Malmesbury, Swellendam, Ceres. So it just opens up all that in the past, how they obtained return loads by doing it in real time at no cost. Basically, it's a few data that they're gonna use, and our app, because of the cloud tech, it's also very, very light and fast on data. So those are the main things I just want to highlight. It's different, it's exciting, and we are new, we are growing quite fast, and we would like to welcome anyone to try it. because it's free to download, and you can just use it and see. If you're not happy, tell us why. If you're happy, tell us why, and we will gladly attempt to grow the market and to try and through this application put more loads onto trucks returning, and in the end also then decrease running costs, tires on the tar, road traffic, carbon emissions, etc. That's in a nutshell. Thank you once again for the opportunity, and sorry that I was a few minutes late. That was unfortunate, but I'm sure we will meet again. Thank you. And
Absolutely.
Jan, thank you very much for presenting.
Thank you, Rian. Really appreciate it. Let's hear from Leanne. Maybe you want to do some closing remarks now?
Yes, thanks, Harry. Yeah, again, thank you very much for having us. I think this was a really insightful forum. Looking forward to some good opportunities also coming up to present a bit more on more topics. But again, I think the reality is now that the new normal is that we need to be agile in our business environment. And, you know, we need to mitigate risks, and it's definitely a new environment for us that we're operating in. But thank you again for everyone also for the comments, the private comments I'm getting. Thanks, I appreciate it a lot. And yeah, please let me know if there's any other questions. Welcome to contact me personally also if you have a question you don't want to ask here in front of everyone.
Thank you, Leanne. Appreciate your time and your presentation. Christian. Some closing remarks from Christian.
Sorry. No, I've got no closing remarks. I think all the new technology is very exciting. I think that as we progress, there's one bunch of people that I've got a lot of faith in, and that's South Africans, to come up with unique ideas around a unique space. I think you know, comparing us to anywhere in the world would you know, make academically sense, but not necessarily you know, practical. So I'm excited to see all these new technologies coming and all the new initiatives. And you know, I for one, I'm excited to partner with these exciting things. So thanks for your time, Harry, and thanks for the platform and opportunity. It's wonderful. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Christian. There's a lot of people on YouTube as well talking about the great presentations they've seen. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Mungo, maybe you want to say a few words?
Yeah, Harry, I really think I said everything I needed to say earlier, but I think it was a really good day. I mean, I've learned a lot. So thanks to all the co-presenters. I mean, it's been a really good day. So well done for putting it together. It's really been worthwhile.
Thank you, Mungo. Thank you. Let's give the presenters and our panelists a big hand. Thank you very much for your good work. And we hopefully will see you a lot again at the Transport Forum in the future. Thank you for supporting us. We really appreciate it. Ladies and gents, our next Transport Forum will be on the 17th of September. It's also a virtual event hosted by the Bunya Group. And we're talking about the economic recession we're in, and are we approaching things correctly? And we've got very interesting presenters, you know, including a guy like Mike Schussler. We've got Wayne Duveneck also presenting from Outa, and so on. So it's very interesting presenters. Hopefully we see all of you there. And then the 1st of October, we've got Month of Transport celebrations, a virtual event as well, also hosted by University of Johannesburg. And there we're talking about the sort of the mess South Africa is in with public transport and how we're going to get out of this. You know, we're driving for change in public transport in South Africa. And we're also going to give some of the professional bodies in the transport sector some opportunity to introduce themselves to you guys. So it's going to be a very interesting event. Yeah, 8th of October, the Road Transport Management System are doing an event with the Transport Forum, but we'll tell you later on that. So keep an eye on your inbox, and we'll keep on spamming you, as they say, with our invites and communication. So take care, and thank you for your time today. You will see this on YouTube, this event, And also the presentations will be uploaded to the Transformers website for you to download complimentary. Remember to subscribe to the Transport Forums YouTube channel and to our LinkedIn page so that we can keep you up to date with all the information. We also see the 17th of September, we also see Andrew Barker presenting on property development and so on. So Andrew, thank you for agreeing, doing that as well. Great, so see you guys next time. Take care. Thank you very much.
Right. Thanks, Harry. Cheers, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks all.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.